que salta del cómic.
He thought he was in control. How wrong he was.
Hey, what's up? It's Shane with Dynamis Media, and I'm joined here with Stefan.
I'm a piranha.
You're tuning into the Dark Side Drive-In, which is our horror themed podcast.
You didn't see a Finding Nemo reference coming within the first 1 minute of this, did you?
I did not. Actually, did not. I'm thinking of all the things you could have done, and that was not one of them. So congrats, that was good. Kudos.
I did it.
It's a solid horror reference that all of our fans would love, because we've all lost our way and had to have a what would strongly be considered a mentally inept guide taking us around trying to find our kids. So yeah,
Sure, yeah. Who can't relate to that universal story?
yeah, right. Anyways, so you're tuning into the Dark Side Drive-In, which is our horror themed podcast where we cover movies from, again, the 70s, probably predominantly 80s at this point, and sometimes 90s. And we are covering Jaws.
Oh, this is embarrassing. It's one of the famous Jaws ripoffs from an era of Jaws ripoffs, probably, or at least to Steven Spielberg, it's considered the greatest of the Jaws ripoffs.
Which is saying a lot.
Yeah. Steven Spielberg did like this one best. This one
or hated the other ones more.
Yes. So we're doing Piranha, which definitely has more of a legacy than the other ones do. Although I will tell you, I kind of have a little soft spot in my heart for Orca. If you ever saw Orca, that was a solid one.
What year did that come out? Orca. That's a good 77.
Yeah, a lot of them came out in like that same era, like the late 70s. They basically, so what, Jaws was 75? And I think most of the ripoffs came out around the time of Jaws 2. So like basically Jaws happened, took the world by storm. Everyone was talking about Jaws. And then suddenly they're like, well, we got to do other versions of like sea creature ones. So you had Orca, you had obviously Piranha, you had like Last Shark, you had Devilfish, you had Tentacles, which, it went a different way with it. It was about an octopus or a squid, I guess, it kills people. And it's really funny because a lot of these movies, like when you watch them on like Tubi, they'll just play one after another, and they all have like that same like late 70s look. So sometimes I'll put one on and like fall asleep on my couch and wake up and think I'm like watching the same movie. And then I'll be like, wait a second, this isn't about a shark at all. Why are there tentacles now? It's like, oh, it's because like
animal.
Yeah, it was like the time. One of the things that I talk about is when I was like back when Netflix actually had good stuff on it. There's one time where I fell asleep watching Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus, and I fell asleep and I woke up during another Giant Octopus movie, and I was like, didn't recognize any of the characters, but I still saw the octopus. I'm like, wow, the octopus must have like won, and now it's just a world ruled by this octopus. There's no more Mega Shark. It's like, no, I just fell asleep and woke up during a different movie.
It's like 20 years later.
Well, I mean, it was a lot of those movies, like they're kind of absent time and place other than like some of the technology they use. So it's like, oh, it takes place anywhere between 2001 and 2015. Like the sci-fi, basically for sci-fi time pretty much froze, except like the cell phones they use pretty much.
Well, if you haven't guessed it, we are pretty into Jaws knockoffs. I guess, I don't know. I don't remember Orca. I'm going to watch that one. I was just looking at it now. I'll add that to the watch. I have seen it. I just don't know why I don't remember it. But you know what time it is though, right?
Like 9:50 p.m.
It's time for We Need a Cool Catchy Title for our game segment. Whoa. go.
Game time.
Yeah, there you go. That's good.
Welcome to the Dark Side Game Room. Pew pew pew. I don't know. We should come up with this name for that segment.
Like a slogan. We like the Dark Side Drive-In Arcade or something. So last time we had a trivia question, and the question was, which 2007 found footage movie involves a virus turning people into cannibals in Barcelona? And your guess was?
Wreck.
And you were correct.
I know.
And I will say I had a hell of a time cleaning that up because we had so many interesting like snippets of like different movie facts that we kept throwing back and forth. And I was trying to not reference like Wreck. But you meant like it was like you mentioned Wreck too, and I'm like, whatever. We'll just kind of roll with it. But yeah, you're on a winning streak, hot streak now, man.
If I was playing NBA Jam, would I be on fire?
After this one, you would be.
Ooh.
So let's see. Okay, you ready?
What are we doing the next one already? We're not gonna talk about Wreck a little bit more.
Do you want to talk about Wreck?
I don't know. I did like Quarantine, like the American remake, quite a bit. But then like I did get around to seeing Wreck, and it was like Wreck was so much better. And I feel like we're to the point now where we're kind of done with American remakes of like foreign movies, right? Like we just accept that we can handle subtitles, right? Like we don't need to like do American remakes of like every other country's horror movies.
And I don't know when that kind of flipped, but I will say probably Parasite was the final nail in that coffin, where I think that people widely accept foreign films now.
When Parasite won the Oscar,
and was so widely like just enjoyed by everyone. You know, one thing, and I'll be honest with you, that I can't stand is dubbed. Like, so like if I'm watching like anime, I like dubbed anime. It doesn't bother me. Dubbed television shows and dubbed movies bother me. Like I'd rather have the subtitles. I don't know. It's just because the audio doesn't match the mouths. It just bothers the shit out of me.
It doesn't really bother me that much because usually there's times where I might want to take a nap.
Okay.
Well, I won't understand what they're saying if I'm sleeping and they're speaking another language. Yeah, okay. Well, that's all. And I also like, during my like, formative years in college, like trying to understand film and like watching all of these different movies, I'd watch a lot of Italian films, especially spaghetti westerns. And Italian films are really interesting because not only were most of them, non-English speakers having their voices dubbed over in English for the movie, but a lot of times Italian movies would do that anyway with their track. They would just like film the movie and then do a dub over track anyway, even if it was the language that they themselves were speaking. And I don't really understand why that is. There's always this like disconnect between like the movie and the voiceover tracks. So like it was one of those things that helped me get like really used to the idea that like, yeah, there's kind of like asynchronicity to this that doesn't bother me too much. But yeah, I think especially like as far as like horror films go, like doing American remakes of horror movies, I really think the straw that broke the camel's back on that trend was just the J-horror remakes. You have your Ringu being remade into The Ring and your Ju-on being remade into The Grudge or whatever. And it just kind of came to the point where it's like, well, we just can't let Japanese horror films stand on their own. We have to do our own version of it. So I think that now we've kind of, although I say that, but I think wasn't it just another Grudge movie just a couple years ago? So
yeah, I can't
like American Grudge movie. So there you go. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we aren't quite past that yet.
Hey, I'm getting a little ahead of ourselves, but
except that you and I just went to see Godzilla -1 minus color.
I know. It was fantastic.
Yeah. So like we were perfectly fine sitting in a theater doing subtitles. Didn't mind it at all.
I mean, that was a master class of how to make a film for any amount of budget. That's one of the best films I've seen in a very long time. Folks, if you haven't seen Godzilla -1, I don't know what you're doing. Like, read our review. It's on our website, dynamismedia.com. And Stefan really hits the nail on the head about, even if you took Godzilla out of this, it would be a fantastic, I guess, period piece on, different things that people are going through after major conflict. But with that said, and I haven't seen the color version, so I'm going to boldly say that I think the black and white version is going to be better than the in color version, but we'll have to see, for me at least. But so you saw both. What do you think?
I think they're both amazing. There's definitely parts of it that I liked what they were doing with the black and white version better. But then there's sometimes where I'll see like a still image of one of the like in color shots, and just like looking at that Godzilla design and how real he looks, I'm like, I can't believe this. And like some of that, like just because black and white isn't how we see the world, so like there's a little bit of artifice there, which I think is a good artifice. But also like it's another thing to like see what is a photorealistic creature and standing there in full color. So I don't know. I think they're both great. Unfortunately, the theatrical run is over. There was only that one last week where they're doing the black and white version, and then now it's done. So
Bummer.
Hopefully it comes to on demand or to like a home video release sometime soon. I think that those things
April.
take a while, but is that what they're saying? Is April?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, April. So, well, I guess you gotta wait, folks.
You snooze, you lose.
Speaking of snoozing, let's go on to the game that we started and have tangentially left.
We moved away from that, yeah, but now we can come back to it.
So this time, instead of trivia or the like taboo game, we're gonna do where I say a movie quote and you have to guess which movie it's from. This one, I think you'll get it, but this is gonna be a hard one. So you ready?
Yeah, I'm the readiest I've ever been.
Okay. So the quote is, "I'm going to give you the choice I never had."
Is that the end of the quote?
That's it. Do you want a hint?
I mean, is there any other hints to give?
I can give you a date of the movie.
Sure, do that.
1994.
1994. Man, I don't know. I'm not really good with movie quotes. I guess I'm gonna go with 7. So that's
Okay.
what I'm gonna say it is.
So your guess is 7.
That's what I'm gonna guess. Yeah.
Stay peeled, folks. We will
Stay peeled.
We'll post the question on our Facebook, and you'll have to wait till next time to find out.
Have you, by the way, is your TikTok discourse all about a bunch of young people pretending they don't know who Killer Mike is?
No.
So I don't even know where this is coming from because I'm not much of a.
Oh my god.
What?
Good.
So like Killer Mike just won the best rap performance like Grammy, right?
Yeah.
And there's like a bunch of young people who are like pissed because it wasn't like Travis Scott, or it wasn't like I think Drake and 21 Savage had like a collab that happened. It's like, number one, dude, I barely know who Travis Scott is. I'm just being honest. So like I'm not in touch with the rap world. That's not my world at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know this. But like but I know who fucking Killer Mike is. And all these kids are like, so who even is Killer Mike, man? Like, who is that guy? It's like, what are you talking about? He's like, what? He's like a big figure in like culture, like not just like rap culture, but in like the American culture and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, people are like, oh, you just know who Killer Mike is because of Bernie Sanders or whatever. Because like Bernie Sanders and him did a bunch of stuff. I'm like, if I'm being honest, I know who Killer Mike is because of Frisky Dingo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot about
Do you
that.
remember? Do you
I
remember?
do now.
Because he
That's
was what
funny.
he was doing the songs that were tuck wheels in Frisky Dingo, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to look up the what it's called specifically.
Yeah,
See,
I'm trying.
I knew him from Outcast, and
Yeah, dude, he played tuck wheel in Frisky Dingo, which was really
yeah, that's it.
like
Taquil. Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, he played tuck wheel and like so, but that's like it's like okay, so that's where I first heard about Killer Mike. But then it's like then I would see him like hanging out with Bernie Sanders. I see him doing other like a lot of political action and things of cultural significance, and I'd be like, oh, it's Killer Mike. Yeah, it's the guy from it's the guy from Frisky Dingo, still out there, still like being relevant. And then now to see all these like Gen Z motherfuckers be like, who even is Killer Mike? It's like you have to be like trying not to know who he is.
Yeah, he was also in Aqua Teen Hunger Force too. He was the Boost mobile phone.
Yeah, because he was like doing a lot of stuff with because like they were like the studios where they were like recording those shows and making those shows
Mm-hmm.
were not far from the studios where he was recording, right? Like it was like they were on in the same like area of like Atlanta or something. Wasn't that the case?
Yeah. Yep.
And that was like they would like did some of those collaborations, which is really cool. But I don't know. You can't. I'm sure you're not going to keep this in
Oh,
the
I'm keeping
show.
this, dude.
How? Like, how are you going to make that work?
I just won't delete it.
I took such a radical
Yeah, fuck
change.
them kids.
But like I mean, even I would got whiplash trying to figure out how I went from.
I'm leaving this in for Killer Mike because he deserves his moment.
No, like no.
The
kidding,
Grammys
yeah.
weren't important. Our shout out on our podcast is going to make this man's career.
Oh please, yeah, right. That's the thing is just like the idea that like now there's all people like these kids online being like, who even is that? It's like, dude, I don't even know if I would know who Travis Scott is if it weren't for like Fortnite. Like otherwise, I
Oh
wouldn't
my
even.
god!
What?
It's like, do you know who The Weeknd is?
He's also in Fortnite,
I know. That's
but he's also in an issue of Fangoria too. So
to be fair, I did have to explain to you who 21 Savage was.
you did 100%. Yeah, when we were playing Call of Duty, I was like, who's this shirtless dude that just showed up in this game?
Oh man. Well,
And now that I have a problem with people running around shirtless, like, do you? But like, it's also a war game. Like, he's going into like a war zone without his shirt on. It seems like you want to wear more protective gear, not less.
Yeah, I feel like that moment in time of them trying to make that game Fortnite is wild to me because not only can you play with Snoop Dogg, but you can also play with Nicki Minaj, and it's like, okay, all right, we get it. So
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I bought Nicki Minaj. I had to. Her
Yeah.
guns were sick. And I think I got Snoop too, but that's because I knew who they were. I didn't know who 21 Savage was until you told me.
right. Anyways, well, I think I think we spent enough time on going through who Killer Mike was. Why don't we get into who's actually in this movie? What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I would guess 1978 would have been well before Killer Mike's time to be in things. But yeah, so like looking at the getting to the cast and crew of Piranha. Hopefully everyone watched the right Piranha. You didn't get stuck accidentally watching the 1995 one. And I actually couldn't find Piranha 3D anywhere. So I think that it's not really streaming right now either. So I guess this is probably the easiest one to find.
It's probably for the best.
I actually liked Piranha 3D.
Or
It
am I
was the
thinking
one-
of Double D?
3 Double D is terrible. And I
Yeah.
think it's on Amazon streaming for free. It's like, well, who wants to watch that? But anyways, Piranha, some consider to be the best of the Jaws ripoffs, is directed by Joe Dante. I believe it was Joe Dante's first full-length feature film, working under the famous, tutelage of Roger Corman, producer extraordinaire. but obviously, like since then, Joe Dante, like other directors like James Cameron, and I mean, you could count all of the famous directors that worked under Roger Corman. And it's actually kind of funny. So this is Joe Dante's first feature. Piranha 2, The Spawning, the sequel to this, was the first feature film directed by James Cameron. Like,
really?
Yeah. So it's like these two like famous directors like get their start with the Piranha series.
That's wild. I did not know that.
Yeah. Joe Dante, known for The Howling. I think we mentioned that when we were doing our Howling 2, Your Sister's a Werewolf episode about how Joe Dante did the first The Howling. He did not do the second, as we know. Twilight Zone, the movie, which I believe was a multiple director collaboration. I want to say John Landis was involved with that, among others. Probably
Spielberg
Joe
too.
Sorry?
Spielberg too.
Yes. Yeah. Spielberg. Yeah. Then probably Joe Dante's most important contribution to worldwide cinema, Gremlins. And then obviously Gremlins 2, the new batch later, which, there's a lot of debate about what's the finest of the Gremlins films. And for a long time, it was actually unsafe to say Gremlins 2, the new batch. It was kind of cool to like hate on that one. But I think in recent years, as those of us who loved it have gotten older and started controlling the narrative, now we can say, no. Give me my one with Electric Gremlin. Give me my one with Bat Gremlin. Like, give me the one with the gremlin who leads them in a resounding sing-along of New York, New York. That's the Gremlins that we all know and love. Not that I don't love the first Gremlins as well, but, Gremlins 2 is finally getting its day in the sun. Much like the Bat Gremlin that got a shot of that sunscreen concoction that allowed it to come outside during the day, only for it to be defeated by Dick Miller when he took control of the cement truck and poured cement on the Bat Gremlin. Do you know what I'm talking about, or am I just saying nonsense?
I do. I liked your slip though, Nick Miller with the.
Oh, Nick Miller is the character from that television
New
program.
Girl.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We always make the old day reference. So
yes,
it's kind
all
of funny.
Day. Yeah, Murray Futterman is his name. Is Dick Miller's name in the Gremlins films. Anyways, other Joe Dante stuff: Explorers, Inner Space, Amazon Women on the Moon, The Burbs, Small Soldiers, which is one that comes up for me probably more often than it should. Looney Tunes Back in Action, which I didn't realize he directed that. That was like the lesser of the Looney Tunes movies that came out. Burying the X, and then most recently he was collaborating on Nightmare Cinema, which was like an anthology film that I can't remember who else. There's other people who collaborated on that. Let me see if I can find who else collaborated.
In terms of directors, or
yeah, the other directors,
Mick Garris and Alejandro Brugues.
Yeah.
Is he Portuguese? Is it Brugues?
And then Ryuhei Kitamura and looks like David Slade. But the one, the big one for me was Mick Garris, who I have talked about before. That Mick Garris is directed. He did what the Stand miniseries, not the most recent one that was on like CBS All Access / Paramount Plus, but the one from like the late 90s. And then also obviously Critters 2. Yeah, Critters 2, the main course. We all know. I have brought it up too many times probably. But yeah, there you go.
No, it's okay.
So Nightmare Cinema, and it's a pretty good one. I like Nightmare Cinema. It was streaming on Tubi. No, it was streaming on Shudder for a while, and I think it was on Tubi, and now I'm not sure where it is. But if you can track down Nightmare Cinema, pretty good. Next up is the writers. There are two credited writers. One is Richard Robinson, who's got a story credit, and then John Sayles, who has like the bulk of it, the big screenwriting credits for it. For Richard Robinson, small amount of things, but big ones. And by that I mean big bugs, because Kingdom of the Spiders is on there. And also Highballin', don't know what that is. And then he has also a story credit on Piranha 1995. That's probably one of those vestigial credits that like he got credit for the story on the original, so he's got to get credit for the story on the remake.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it is. And then for John Sayles, he has a lot of certified bangers on his list. We got ourselves Battle Beyond the Stars, Alligator, Alligator being another one of those Jaws ripoffs, but this time it's an alligator. Writing credit on The Howling. So, obviously he's got some experience, continuing to work with Joe Dante. The Brother from Another Planet. He also had credit for actually writing Piranha, the 1995 version, the Spiderwick Chronicles, and then Amigo. So those are some stuff for John Sayles. He also has acting credits, and I think he might even have some directing ones. But he has like 30 some odd acting credits, usually cameo appearances in movies that he was involved in. For instance, he actually has an acting credit in this movie as he's listed as Sentry. He is the guard, I believe, who is distracted during a pivotal
funny.
scene. Yeah. During a pivotal scene that you and I were discussing before starting our recording today.
That's good.
It is good. Next up is music. The composer is Pino Donaggio. A lot of Italian films on his list of credits for doing the music. I didn't recognize a lot of those, but I did take down anything that I did. So Don't Look Now, which is funny because we had that trivia about Don't Look Now a couple episodes back.
We did.
Yeah. Carrie, Tourist Trap, Dress to Kill, The Howling, Body Double, Savage Dawn, The Barbarians, which is like one of those kind of crappy sword and sorcery movies that I sometimes put on just to play in the background while I'm like reading or something. Gore 2, Two Evil Eyes, which is one that came up for us because it was the George Romero and I believe Dario Argento project where they worked together. It was like an anthology film, and it had Tom Atkins in it. I think we talked about it during the Maniac Cop episode. So
who's Tom Atkins again?
Wow. Is that what we're gonna do tonight? We're gonna fight?
No, I was just trying to cue you up for a good solid Tom Atkins plug.
Yeah, here's a Tom Atkins plug. The hoodie that I had on yesterday. I finally got my that I sent you a picture of it, the Thrill Me hoodie from Night of the Creeps.
That was good.
Yeah, it finally came. So yeah, I've been wearing my Tom Atkins hoodie pretty much all the time.
You should post that on Instagram and tag me.
What, just a picture of the hoodie?
Yeah, that's funny.
All right, yeah, I'll get on that. But yeah, some other music for Pino Donaggio, Oblivion, and then Seed of Chucky. So that's kind of where I left off on him. He has a lot more credits than that, though. These are just like some of the highlights for me, for things that I recognize and things that were in English, so I could actually understand what the title was. Did you have anything to add for that? I know sometimes you'll pick up on stuff music-wise that I don't quite.
No, I think you did a great job.
All right, next up is I mentioned to you before we started this, the makeup departments and the visual effects departments for this are a lot of people deep, but I decided to go with like the bigger names, the ones that had like really long careers afterwards, and pick a couple of them out because we just don't have time to go through every single person who was like on the makeup and effects departments for this. For the makeup department, I went with Rob Bottin, who I believe was 17 at the time of this film being made, and was recommended by whoever the original visual effects artist was that they wanted for it. He ended up suggesting Rob Bottin. So pretty long career here. There is Squirm, King Kong, the 70s version, a little movie you might have heard of called Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope.
What's that about?
It's basically like Akira Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress, but in space.
Oh, It's like Frank Herbert's Dune.
No, not very much like that. No. There's The Fog, which I've brought up before because Tom Atkins. Maniac, The Howling, which so many of these people are involved in The Howling. It's kind of wild to me.
It is crazy.
The Thing, Twilight Zone the movie, Legend, Inner Space, RoboCop, The Great Outdoors, Total Recall, Basic Instinct, Seven, Mission Impossible, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Fight Club, Charlie's Angels, and Mr. Deeds. And I think the only reason I brought up Charlie's Angels was because I just talked to you about Charlie's Angels recently. Because
we're talking about Crispin Glover.
Because of the Crispin Glover theme song that samples the Godzilla theme.
Yeah.
See, everything comes together and everything makes sense. For the visual effects, the representative I chose for that is a name that some people recognize. It's Phil Tippett. He's so many credits for his effects work. The Crater Lake Monster, also Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, and Star Wars Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. Also Dragon Slayer, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Howard the Duck. So you're starting to see a lot of like ILM work, like George Lucas's like effects company. He was working for ILM a lot, so that's why you'll recognize a lot of these movies. House 2, The Second Story, which is not the first time House 2, The Second Story has come up in this podcast. We should do that for this sometime.
Oh, for sure.
RoboCop, RoboCop 2 and RoboCop 3, Willow, Jurassic Park, and Phil Tippett got kind of memed for Jurassic Park because his job title was like dinosaur supervisor or something. If you're like, Phil, you had one job. It was like a little meme from that.
That's good.
Let me see. Tremors 2, Aftershocks, Dragonheart, Starship Troopers, The Haunting, Evolution, The Spiderwick Chronicles, Twilight New Moon, Twilight Eclipse, Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 1 and 2. And then his most recent credit was actually a Shudder original movie that Phil Tippett was like, did the effects work for, but also like directed. And it's like his vision through and through, which is Mad God, which was like a claymation movie that was on Shudder. That was a pretty interesting one. It's not a long one, but like there's no actual dialogue. It's all told through like just, exposition. Like it just like you watch it happen and just like get the context from the action. So there you go. Phil Tippett, certified banger after banger for this dude.
Except for Twilight, but we won't get into that, I guess.
Look,
there was nothing wrong with the special effects.
He had it. Well, I don't know. Breaking Dawn, whenever the baby that they have, what is it?
Oh yeah, that was terrible.
Renesmee, whenever she's like,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was horrifying. But no, I think that especially New Moon and Eclipse, when compared to the first one's like visual effects, they were both huge steps up. And then it's like they decided to forego all of that work and make this like monstrosity of a digital baby. So I kind of have a problem with the fact that I have so much knowledge of the Twilight series of movies that I'm just
I wasn't
like,
gonna say anything, but geez.
Yeah, let me explain to you where you're right and where you're wrong. But yeah, that was all I wanted to cover for like like I said, there's so many other effects people that you could get into because there's just a ton of them, probably because of all like the, a lot of the times I'd read that like the piranhas, when you do see them, were just like puppets on like sticks. They're like being held by like effects workers and stuff like
you
that.
Don't say.
Those weren't real piranhas eating people? Piranha, I guess, because piranha is plural. It's like fish, right? Like piranha and piranha. Like,
sure.
There's one piranha, or there's a whole herd of piranha. Or school, I guess. You wouldn't really call it a herd. Anyways, next up is the cast. We're going to start with our heroic hero of the movie, which is Paul Grogan, is played by Bradford Dillman. A man who was unhappy with how thinly written his character was until they explained that Roger Corman just like has thinly written characters, but since he's a real actor, they could flesh it out a little more if they wanted to. So they gave him a tragic backstory about the dissolution of his marriage and alcoholism.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
Yeah. His credits, just a ton of Western TV shows. Like, I don't want to go through like the standard suite of them, but you know them. Like your Bonanzas, your Rawhides, your like, I don't know which ones, but there's a bunch of like those Western TV shows from the 60s era. He had Escape from the Planet of the Apes, Moon of the Wolf, Bug, The Swarm, Sudden Impact, Lords of the Deep, which viewers who like Mystery Science Theater 3000 will recognize Lords of the Deep was one of the episodes they did. And then also he had 8 episodes of Murder, She Wrote, which I just thought was funny because it looked like he played a different character in each episode. It's like, geez, Bradford Dillman, why don't you like stop coming to the Angela Lansbury well for a second and get another job? Next up is our female lead, Heather Menzies Ulrich. And this one, I think she was just credited as Heather Menzies because she hadn't changed her professional name, but she was married at the time to the Ulrich of it all. She plays Maggie McGowan. I think it's how you pronounce her last name. I'll just refer to her as Maggie because that's easier to pronounce. She was in a little musical you may have heard of called The Sound of Music. She played The Sound of Music. It's the one where the hills are alive with the sound of reckoning. Yeah. So
insert Slayer.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, like Sound of Music, just one of those like lighthearted musicals that involves Nazism. But also like, she was one of the Von Trapp sisters. I gather there were several of them. I don't know if she was the one that was what, 16 going on 17. I don't know which one. Was that who she was?
No, that's the oldest sister.
Okay.
No, she was the next youngest sister, Louisa.
Cool. I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
Do you think that the hills that were alive with the Sound of Music were also the ones that had eyes in the Wes Craven movie?
I mean,
probably not, because one was in like the Arizona desert and the other one was in Austria.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it could be a different place.
Probably close to each other.
Sure. I mean, mountains, all pretty much the same.
Hey, those hills could have eyes too. We don't know.
We don't. All right, then the computer wore tennis shoes, but not like the Kirk Cameron remake. It was the original one. She was in. You remember?
Yeah.
I brought up before the Snake movie. She was in 14 episodes of the Logan's Run television program and then Endangered Species. And I believe that was her final credit. Kind of a sad but interesting detail is that both her and Bradford Dillman like passed away within like 6 months of one another. I think both due to cancer, unfortunately. So not a fun fact, but an interesting one nonetheless. So now that I've brought us down, let's raise us back up with Dr. Robert Hoke, as played by Kevin McCarthy. He was in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And Shane, I know you're wondering, was it the 50s one or the 70s one?
Which one was it?
It was both.
It was both.
It was both. Like he had an actual role in the 50s
snatched both
one.
bodies.
Yes. And then in the 70s one, it was more like a glorified cameo, which I know you were not happy about that.
Yeah, give the man his due.
I mean, he was in it though, at least, you know, that's nice to see.
Yeah.
But then he was also in a little movie called The Howling, Twilight Zone, the movie, Invitation to Hell, Inner Space, Dark Tower, but not the one with Idris Elba, The Burbs, UHF, Ghoulies Go to College, which is probably my second favorite Ghoulies. He was in one episode each of Batman the Animated Series and Tales from the Crypt. So it's like he's just gonna check off television programs that I love.
Yeah, he's hitting all your boxes today.
He really is. Yeah, as Addams Family Reunion, the Legend of Razorback, and then I think his last credit, I don't remember for sure, was Looney Tunes Back in Action. So another collab with our man Joe Dante. Next up is Dr. Mengers as played by Barbara Steele. She's got some pretty good stuff. Black Sunday, The Pit and the Pendulum, 8.5, Terror Creatures from Beyond the Grave, which you don't really have to specify if it's beyond the grave. I already think it's terror filled. She Beast, Caged Heat, Shivers, which Shivers is one of the, probably not the better of the David Cronenberg films, if I'm recalling which movie that is correctly. The Boneyard Collection, La Fantôme, and then a recent one that's kind of interest to me, at least, was she was in the Castlevania anime series.
Mm-hmm.
So, pretty cool. Next up is Colonel Waxman, as played by Bruce Gordon. He had a mostly TV show appearances, so I just picked a few. Bonanza, Get Smart, Jackie Gleason Show, Perry Mason, The Untouchables, and then Peter Gunn, and then also like a movie like Rider on a Dead Horse, some stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a ton of credits, but like most of them were just like very much old television programs and stuff like that. Next is our man Buck Gardner, is played by Dick Miller. I didn't go too into Dick Miller because we already had Dick Miller in an episode and talked about him extensively. And which episode was that actually that we talked about Dick Miller?
It was in, give me 1 second, Chopping Mall.
Was the Chopping Mall the one he was in?
Yep.
Oh yeah, he was the same character he plays in so many things.
Yeah, like
and he was like the janitor who had an altercation with the robot that ended in his demise. So yeah, go back to the Chopping Mall episode if you want to hear me talk more about Dick Miller. But you know, obviously tons of collaborations with Joe Dante. You know, The Burbs, Gremlins, Small Soldiers. He was in Terminator briefly, is like the gun salesman that's like selling the Terminator the guns and gets shot by him. Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight, tons of great stuff for him. So Dick Miller, he's a real one. Well, not in this one. In this one, he's a pretty bad dude, which is kind of a bad one. Yeah, he's a bad one. Next up is one of the camp counselors. Laura is played by Melody Thomas Scott. She had some like older movies, The Beguiled, The Shootist. She had one episode of Diagnosis Murder, an episode of My Name is Earl, an episode of Castle. And then she had, if I was reading the credits correctly, 3,462 episodes of The Young and the Restless over the course of like 3 decades. Yeah. So she had a lot of stuff going on with that show. Next up is another of the counselors, Betsy, as played by Belinda Belaski. And she both has a bunch of stuff that she was doing before she started becoming a collaborator with Joe Dante. And then Joe Dante seems like just put her in everything else afterwards. So she had Locusts, The Food of the Gods, which I think The Food of the Gods, if I'm not wrong, is a giant rat movie. Till Death, The Howling, Gremlins, Explorers, Amazon Women on the Moon, Gremlins 2: The New Batch, Small Soldiers, The Vampire Hunters Club, Nightmare Cinema, and then Nasty was her most recent credit. So yeah, she's in a ton of stuff with Joe Dante at the helm, which is cool to see. Next up is Dumont, as played by Paul Bartel, which I don't remember how much I talked about him, but he was also in Chopping Mall. Do you remember his character in that?
No.
He was that bland couple that were like doing the comedy bit at the beginning. He was like the male component of that couple.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember at the beginning when I was like, I think this is supposed to be funny, sure, but it's really not. Yeah, that's him. Huh. So yeah, Death Race 2000, Frankenweenie, National Lampoon's European Vacation, Munchies, Amazon Women on the Moon, Caddyshack 2, Gremlins 2, Usual Suspects, Joe's Apartment. Those are just some ones that I got down for him because I can't remember how much I covered him then because I remembered being unimpressed with his character in that. But in this one, his character is a standout. So I was like, I guess I better give him his due now, you know, better late than never.
No, that's for sure.
And now we're just going to run through some really quick one-offs. Jack, the friendly neighbor of our hero Paul, is played by Keenan Wynn. He's in Annie, Get Your Gun, Doctor Strangelove, The Clonus Horror, The Last Unicorn, an episode of Tales from the Dark Side, The Goonies, Mirrors, and so on and so forth. Susie Grogan, Paul's daughter, who's at the summer camp, is played by Shannon Collins. Tiger's Tail, Carver's Gate, Virtual Corporation. She doesn't have a ton of stuff in her career. Then our first two victims, Barbara Randolph is played by Janie Squire. She was in Carrie, Inner Space, and The Killing Zone. And then last is David, as played by Roger Richmond, Switchblade Sisters. But then he also had some stunt work, and the most recent stunt thing that he had was Tenacious D in The Pick of Destiny. So obviously I had to write it down.
That's amazing.
Yes, it is. So there you go. I kind of glazed over a couple of people because there are some other people that might be interesting. For instance, Dick Miller's assistant Whitney had a few credits that looked interesting, but it's like, we can't get everybody. We can't get every human being on it.
Yeah.
So there you go. That is the cast, or as much as I was going to cover of the cast.
Cast and or crew.
And or crew.
Anyone of note.
Well, that seems rude, but yes, also anyone of note. Yes, that's them.
I can't believe you didn't want to talk about the damn guard, Mike Sullivan.
Why would I want to talk about him? But does he do anything interesting?
No.
Oh, you doing a bit?
Thanks, dude. Nothing gets past you.
World's greatest detective.
Nothing gets over your head. You're too fast, right? Good old Marvel joke.
Oh, man. I didn't realize Phil Tippett played one of the scuba divers.
Probably the one that died.
It is. It definitely is. If you look at him, you'll know.
Yeah. I know that panic looked in his eyes. I can tell.
Let's see what Mike Sullivan has on him.
Nothing. It's like two other things.
Yeah, deadly hero and utterly without redeeming social value. That's the name of a movie, not me saying that about him. No way. Wait, what?
What?
They have somebody credited as Brandy.
Yeah.
The dog.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't going to say anything. I really didn't know what to do.
Did you
look at his? Yeah.
That other credit for that dog is an anime.
Right.
And also, he said the dog Brandy is played by Jack Cardwell. I think something got wrong. Something got messed up. There's no way that...
Yeah, because if you go into Jack Cardwell, it says Area 88 is a voiceover.
I mean, I guess it's possible to have a dog do a voiceover, but I feel like that's got to be a mistake.
Unless that's the dog's name.
Jack Cardwell?
I mean...
I mean, people name their dogs all sorts of things these days. Well, then now that I've covered the cast and crew as thoroughly as I will be bothering to do you know what time it is now?
10:41.
Yeah, but you also know it's time for...
Yeah, how's it feel? How's it feel when your partner, when you line it up like that and they just do that to you? You tell me. What's it time for?
You're technically correct, which is the best kind of correct. But yeah, no, what it is actually time for is the plot description. Wow.
Around your mic with your face.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious to me.
I'm going to make a Doppler effect.
Yeah. Well, what's great for Discord is that when you get so far away, it just cuts your sound. But
I haven't gotten that far away, I don't think.
No, it's the noise canceling in Discord. But when it's funny, I'll hear it in the editing. So.
Well, there you go. Okay. So, Piranha. New World Picture. What's going on?
Don't worry, folks. Our long-running theme recently still continues in this movie. Not on screen, though. So,
wait, which thing are you talking about?
The dead dog.
The dog doesn't die in this.
They find the dog bones in the bottom of the.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah. I thought you meant Brandy.
No. Jack Cardwell makes it.
Jack Cardwell, the dog. All right, so New World Pictures. That's right. It's Roger Corman's company. It's over at first what looks like regular water, but then what is it? It turns like red, right? And then it's blue lettering.
I think it's the other way. Blue with red lettering.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of the closing credits. Either way, we get the we get a little bit of it's kind of weird looking because it's kind of a black background with like yellow letters for a little bit, and then it's weird blue black ones. I don't know. It's kind of look. I don't know what they're up to. It doesn't matter. We're done with that. We're gonna pan down to a chain link fence with barbed wire and a no trespassing sign. Surely this means that no one will trespass. And it is nighttime, and we get a couple hiking through the woods, and the couple is we'll find out is Barbara and David. They given that it's night, they say they need to make camp soon. There's one thing that you do when you're backpacking in the woods is you wait till after nightfall to set up camp. That's what everyone does. Like,
yeah, totally.
Nothing like setting up camp in the pitch darkness.
In the dark.
Yeah.
So then you don't remember where the strings are for the tent. It's great. That's how you're supposed to do it.
Makes total sense. They get to like the no trespassing sign and the fence. It's like very unwelcoming. But David suggests to Barbara that they go in and explore. Barbara's wondering why this place wasn't on the map. Which, the guy like correctly suggests that it's a secret because it is like a secret facility that's run by the government. But we also learn later that it existed before the government bought it. So it's like, well, then why wouldn't it have been on a map?
Yeah, I didn't think about that till right now.
I know. These things like
that is good. That's funny.
But yeah, so they go in and they find a artificial body of water. Barbara says far out so that we remember that we're in the 70s.
Oh man.
Yeah. So, she approaches the water. And we get a cutaway to a pair of inhuman eyes opening, presumably a piranha, because I can't remember what happened. Like she like touched the water and was like, "Oh, this water's amazing." And the piranha opened its eyes because now it knows it's time to devour some hapless teens.
I thought she said cold. Didn't she say cold?
She says that it's nice. It's
because it's salt water. You're right.
It's the one who says it's cold.
I'm thinking the boat scene or the raft scene.
The one who says that it's cold is actually whenever Paul is there with Maggie later.
Gotcha.
He says it's cold, but no, she says it's nice. And then Barbara, who's reluctant to actually enter the fence, now is no longer reluctant and insists they jump into the water in order to wash off, because apparently they're really funky from their walk, and she says it'll be gross for them to be in the sleeping bag. And that's the other thing is like, it's like, man, how many bad decisions can you possibly make? Like going into a no trespassing place and it's going to like a body of water, like it's an artificial body of water. Like, what we should definitely do? Jump in this water that we don't know what it's used for.
Like immediately take off all your clothes and jump in the water.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like, so Barbara, like the dude is like uncertain still. And she just like hauls off and pushes him in. And then, Barbara, she disrobes and hops in herself. And then whenever she hops in, like David's like, "Hey, why'd you bite me for?" And she's like, "I didn't bite you. You're crazy, dude." And guess what bit him? Shane, it was piranha. In order to attract as much attention as possible, they decide they want to do a swimming race.
Yeah.
But David, in the midst of it, is starting to get devoured. And we do get some of the traditional bloody water. This is kind of the problem with a lot of this movie is you don't see a ton of what's going on. It's just like blood water, which sometimes is effective and sometimes is just annoying. So yeah, Barbara yells for David. despite the fact that it's not a very big pool of water and he's definitely not surfaced. So
Yeah, and like obviously it's like, oh man, you swimming over to help him is gonna really do something.
yeah, that'll help. But yeah, no, she starts to get eaten as well. She actually makes it to the end of the pool, but she's unable to pull herself up, so you get like a bloody hand out of the water before she gets pulled in by the piranhas, and she gets ate. And that's the other thing that was like, they both jumped into that pool without like, I don't know, seeing if there's a ladder that they could get out of there, like used to get out of there.
Or
So
like
they're pretty
look in the
much
water.
they're pretty much toast. Oh yeah, even look in the water. Yeah, but so she's dead. But like after all of the screaming between her and David, the lights to the nearby facility turn on, and a man that presumably is Dr. Hoke, who we'll get to know later, he goes and looks out, but it's too late and they've been eaten. So, now is when we get a shot of the water, and it's the red letters of the Piranha logo, and then the water turns to red, and then the credits show up in white lettering over the red tinted water. Yeah, there we go. That's the part that I was looking at. I knew my notes wouldn't let me down.
Got it in one.
Got it in one. Yeah, edit out the part where I thought it was earlier.
It was kind of cool looking.
No, it definitely was. Yeah, I mean it's just a red tint of water, but yeah, it gets the idea across that like people will be bleeding. Was the music is just your standard like slow orchestral suite, putting on a little more airs than the movie deserves, but that's fine. I do kind of wish that some of these 70s movies would stop taking an orchestral swing and just give me some synth, but that's fine. We'll get back to the 80s eventually.
Yes.
Smash cut to someone playing an old Jaws video game. The woman is our female lead, Maggie. Some guy, presumably her boss, is over renting a car, like organizing a car rental for her because they're at like a Hertz at like an airport. And the reason is for all of this is she's a skip tracer. She's going to like try to go figure out what happened to the missing girl, Barbara.
Right.
Yeah. And he's like, her boss is kind of doubtful of her abilities. Is like, all your other jobs have been inside the city. And she's like, hey, I'm 2/3 bloodhound. I've captured, and she like goes through a list of like her successful retrieval efforts. She's not actually 2/3 bloodhound though. This is not.
Wait, what?
This isn't related to the Howling movie. But then we get like him almost vindicated because she's absent-minded because she turns around realizing she forgot her ticket, but the boss still had it and hands it to her and kind of makes a fuss about how it's my money that's being put up for all this. It's like, okay, dude, just chill out. Although it turns out he was right because like whatever that vehicle is that was rented from the Hertz was like that Jeep because of like how rough the roads are supposed to be where she's going. And how long does she have that thing before it's completely wrecked?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. That's great.
Like, yeah, 12 calendar hours. But yeah, so
they never resolve that.
Other than that they can't drive it. Like
insurance fraud.
Yeah, well, I mean technically she's not the one who crashes it, but I doubt that they're going to care about that, especially considering the person who did crash it.
Especially after the piranhas.
Well, that's the thing is like insurance companies, like how do they handle that? Is it considered an act of God or is it an act of Dr. Hoke? But anyways, cut to an old man who we will later learn is, or not even later, just pretty much immediately learn is Jack, the other alcoholic on the river, alongside our man Paul. Jack and Brandy, his dog, go to Paul's house. What is it? Jack is like pulling a wagon, which seems like it's just full of alcohol. And what a convenient coincidence, because Paul is already sitting on his porch drinking tequila out of a giant flask. It's more like a canteen. But he's using a canteen. He's using it as a flask.
Yeah, you got problems with your repurposing. So was he a vet?
Which one?
Like Vietnam vet? Were they trying to imply that? Because he brings up some stuff about the war.
All he really says is that the war was over, though.
Yeah, but then he's got like the canteen and.
If he was a vet, he seems like he's a little old to have been a vet of Vietnam. Well, maybe he was.
Or is that him just trying to add in? I mean, dude, it started in the 60s.
Well, that's true. It was a very long war. But he also, like, the reason they give for his alcoholism is that his wife left him.
Right.
They don't
true.
actually bring up like if he was in the war. The only thing he really says about the war is like whenever like the scientists are explaining, it's like, well, we're making
The war's
killer
over.
piranhas to fight the war for us. He's like, the war's over. It's like, yeah, but he's like, there will be other wars, and we'll need these piranhas for when they happen. But hey, spoiler alert, our wars recently been like in the Middle East.
Yeah,
Not
right.
a lot of utility to piranha out there.
Well, there's one piranha that would help, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Oh, yeah, that thing? Okay, well,
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll get there.
yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, so anyways, these are local alcoholics. Paul tells Jack that he imagines that he misses whatever his job was, but Jack is like, no. I have the river. The river gives me what I want to eat. It washes my clothes. It sustains me. He like goes on this like wax poetic about the river. I was like, Jack, we just met you, dude. We're not ready for this long
Right.
speech. And he's like, and of course I've got my dog Brandy. And he turns to his dog. Yeah, and then he asks, like Jack asks Paul what he has, and Paul says tequila. It's like, geez. Yeah, but cut over to Maggie. What's she up to? She's in the Jeep off-roading, or like I guess it's a road, but it's like a very poorly maintained road. That's what I put in my notes. It's like off-roading, or at least very poorly maintained roading. The vehicle overheats due to the rough conditions she's putting it through. So she goes to knock on a door. So, okay, here's the thing. I thought she was going to knock on a door nearby because she's having car trouble. But when she knocks on the door and it's Paul's, she's like, are you Paul Grogan? Like she was looking for him. And it never really explains why she was looking for him other than that he's a local resident.
Right.
But yeah, so this is when we find out what Maggie is doing.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah. So she explains that she's a skip tracer. Paul is like regarding with suspicion is like, what, did my ex-wife send you? And he's like, no, I'm looking for the missing teens. And like explains about the two who are out backpacking. They end up going missing. So I think it's Barbara's father is one who hired her like company. It's kind of a funny scene though, because she's like explaining like what she's up to, why she's there. And Paul, proving that he's kind of a jag, is just ignoring her and eating a fish he had just grilled up. It's like, well, have you tried the police? And she's like, yeah, dude. Like, how do you think I got this far? And that's kind of what I assumed is the police were probably like, oh yeah, there's totally a guy named Paul in the woods who will definitely help you out. Like just being dismissive of her as they are of Paul throughout the movie. The cops do not like him. Then, Paul's like explaining to her, who's around on the river. It's like, well, there's Jack who lives up the way. And then there's also the old army test site that closed 5 or 6 years ago. And she's like, all right, come on, let's go. So she's decided to make him her guide. And despite what we've come to know about his personality, he agrees to do it.
Well, yeah, it was just like, I don't know, we're taking me up there, and it's like smash cut.
And then in the next scene, she's like, in the Jeep on their way, or they're already at the site.
Right.
And then it's the exact same, like, no trespassing sign from before. And I was like, they kind of made a deal about how, like, she might be absent-minded and might not actually be as good at her job as she was, like, boasting. But she literally, like, within the same day has already found where the kids went missing. It's like, I guess she must actually be good at her job. Like, I don't know why they played it for laughs. Like, she was, like, not, because she actually seems to be.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point.
So they go into the fence as well, and they're walking around the facility. And I was like, hey, for a place that's been closed for like 5 or 6 years, it's very well maintained. Which they don't seem to take note of. But I feel like that's just one of those movie things that you never really notice. Like how in like the TV show The Walking Dead, lawns are still mowed. And then while they're walking through the facility, Paul still has his canteen of alcohol with him. So it's like, oh man, he's gone so far in his alcoholism.
Okay. Can we talk about something real quick?
Sure.
Okay. If you were to beat a fence open with a hatchet and then proceed to run down a hill, which way would you hold the axe blade?
If, what do you, I guess.
Would you face it up towards you or down towards the ground?
Down towards the ground.
Okay, she ran the entire way down that hill, the actress did, with the axe blade facing her the whole time. So, dude, if she would have tripped, that went straight into her.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Oh, it bothered the shit out of me. I was so mad about that.
This is like the Slithis beer all over again.
Yeah, I actually had to rewind it. I'm like, did she fucking do this the entire way? Yeah, the whole way into the facility, the axe head was facing up, like towards her, and she was like running at it with it cocked like in her hand. Like I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, unfortunately, I did not notice that. I apologize.
No, I just bothered the shit out of me.
But yeah, no. So like, in more of an example of how good Maggie is at her job. They like get down by like the pool and she like immediately finds Barbara's locket with her initials on it. Like, and this is when Paul puts his hand in the pool and we hear for the first time the sound of piranha attack approach, which is a sound that definitely doesn't sound like what I would think a piranha sounds like. And based on the trivia that I was reading, it was like made by like putting a drill bit into the water and recording it from underwater.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's how they made the sound, apparently. And this is when Paul's like, ooh, that's cold. And he lifts his hand up just in time to presumably not get bit, because we do get like a piranha POV as it like goes towards the hand, but it's gone before they can get there. Even though later we do see that they can jump out of the water if they really want to.
They're evolving.
They're learning. Since and like what is it, Maggie or like Paul's like, well, they can't be dead here because their bodies would be on the surface, and Maggie's like, oh no, it takes time before the gases bloat up enough for a body to float to the surface. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Salt water.
Oh, does that have anything to do with salt water, or is that just bodies in general?
No, I'm just like, because salt, like it's easier to float in salt water.
Yeah, well, they don't know it's salt water yet, though.
Okay.
Yeah. So the pair walk into the laboratory, which is very clearly still manned. Lights are on everywhere. Equipment's running. There's still Bunsen burners burning. Like, like the whole thing is just like, and there's even still like live animals for testing. And then I was like, is it at any point where they're going to be like, hey, this place still has people working there? But then I think they figured out when Maggie finds a still warm cup of coffee. And then what do we get, Shane? What do we get in the very next room?
What should have been the whole plot of this movie.
Yeah, we get the glimpse of that claymation fish lizard thing that will never show up after this like sequence of events here.
Fucking pissed.
It's just this like fish lizard thing made of claymation just walking around. They don't see it. It's like hiding behind shelves, but we see it. The audience sees it.
It's like, hey, Joe, like, come on.
Yeah.
What are you doing here, pal?
Now, there's going to be a couple more instances where I'm going to bring up the lizard fish thing, because it like has a couple like weird reaction shots in this. Yeah, in these
it's great.
Scenes.
And so it's like smart, like it's sentient.
Yeah, it's definitely knows what's up. Yeah. So apparently
this guy was definitely friends with it too.
Yeah, it was like his pal. He let it loose. Because there's
another
thing.
The best like ET buddy cop kind of like thing going on if they'd have brought that with them.
Yeah, just a straight up like like a Mac and me. And
like, what if? Oh, sorry, I keep interrupting you. I'm sorry.
Well, no, go ahead. Say what you want to say.
So like what if revisionist history? Like, what if the fish would have been voiced by like James Earl Jones or something, and it would have went with him the whole time and did all the exposition on the fish?
It would have actually been pretty cool if it was sentient enough that it could like explain to them all the stuff that like Dr. Hoke was supposed to do.
Right, like they accidentally kill him in this next scene.
Yeah, well, very quickly we do end up getting Dr. Hoke
could
dead.
Have.
But no, like, well, so, but what I was going to tell you was what the intention was for this thing. So the plan was that this thing would like keep showing up throughout the movie. It'd be getting bigger and bigger until like at the climax, it would be like attacking a dock. and that would be like the final boss of the movie would be this like claymation fish lizard.
Aw.
But because of like, you know, Roger Corman's like, you know, no, you get a shoestring budget, you only get enough to do X number of things. They had to like basically rewrite it. And then I guess the reason that that Joe Dante kept it in was just as a reference to like the Ray Harryhausen thing. And I was like, I would see the Ray Harryhausen of it all if it turned giant and then ended up in a giant, like a fight against a giant claymation thing. That's very much a Ray Harryhausen. Right now, it's just a very small claymation thing running around the laboratory, barely having a couple reaction shots, and that's it. Like, that's not very Ray Harryhausen. I'm sorry. It's just not.
I wonder if they like made it and then they had to, they're like, well, what do we do now?
We already have this claymation thing.
Right.
It's like, we got to at least put it in a scene. But yeah, so anyways, I'll, like I said, there's going to be a couple more times this fish lizard's going to be mentioned, and then it's gone forever. Gone from the movie, but not from our hearts, I think is what I put in my notes later. Yeah, there's lots of mutated corpses in jars that distract them from seeing the fish lizard that's like lurking behind them. And they're all in varying states of like piranhatization and lizardization kind of thing. In one tank, they see a mutated reptilian like fish puppet thing, which looks like it's like halfway between a piranha and whatever that other thing is. It's like out on land. You know, Paul wants to leave because duh. But literally in the very next room, Maggie finds the backpacks that belong to Barbara and David. Very clear evidence that they were here. And this is the part where she thinks that their bodies must be in the water, but they haven't floated yet because there hasn't been enough time for the gases to bloat up their corpses. So she wants to drain the pond. She says that those words, drain the pond. But according to no, she says pond. But according to IMDb trivia, that it's because of the concrete barriers that like the concrete sides, it's actually technically a pool and not a pond. I guess a pond has to be dirt. So there you go. IMDb roasted her.
I'd vote for her.
Paul, okay. Paul says that they probably need someone's permission, but Maggie doesn't care. She's just going to go and flip the switch. Luckily, there's a very well labeled thing that says drain this thing. Yeah. But as soon as she hits the lever to drain it, Dr. Robert Hoke comes in and shouts, what are you doing? And just starts trying to fight them. Like instantly tries to fight Maggie. He's like attacking Paul with like, looks like some kind of like skimmer for like for probably on the, pool. Rather than, I don't know, using his words to explain that they're draining a pool full of murder fish into the local water supply, he just tries to fight them.
Yeah. He's like, I'm just going to kill him.
Yeah. We get a brief reaction shot from our claymation fish lizard as it tries to scurry away from this confrontation. It does like a little corner snipe look. It like is like hanging out around the corner and looking at him. Meanwhile, Maggie takes the opportunity to knock Dr. Hoke out. She like clubs him in the head with like what looks like a pipe. I don't know what she used.
Yeah, I don't know. She does that. That's her move.
Oh, no, this is not the first time, or this isn't the last time she's going to knock out a man with whatever she's got available to her. But Paul scolds her for knocking out the doctor, but it seems like he's more upset because his canteen flask is dented.
That's what she hit him with.
Oh, was it the flask that she hit him with?
Yeah, that's what
okay.
Yeah.
That explains the dent. And then I think this might be, yes, this is our last reaction shot from the fish lizard. So she insists that she wants a drink of it. And Paul's like, well, it's warm. You're not going to like it. And she takes a drink of what I presume is warm tequila from a canteen. And she like kind of like has the reaction you expect. She is having a hard time swallowing that. And then we get a reaction shot from the claymation fish lizard to her struggling with the sip. And that's it. The last thing we get is it doing like a dog double take to her, like, you know what I mean by that? A dog double take, like it does like a reaction shot, and then that's the end of the fish lizard. So yeah, gone from the movie, but not from our hearts. They go out and investigate the pool, which has been drained. This is when Paul checks the water that's like coming from one of the pipes and notices that it's salt water. And he explains,
you think if like your whole life's mission is to not have that place drained, that you would disable that function,
or at least like put up like some kind of safeguard. Yeah, like what if like he tripped and just like hit it? Like that's the thing. It was like such an easy switch to hit and well labeled. Like everything about it just like screams like add some redundancy to this, man.
Like a moment of drunken stupor. He's like, I hate society, and just like hits the button.
Yeah, well, he wouldn't do that because he's a dreamer, according to Dr. Mengers.
She says that multiple times.
She does. And also that she was apparently like had some kind of relationship with him.
Yeah, he's into fish chicks.
Okay. All right. So yeah, like what is it that is happening? Oh yeah, this is the part where we get a little bit more like background about what this was. Like Paul explains that this used to be a fish hatchery before the army took it over. Hence why it'd be a good area for fish experiments. But also, that's why I was like, well, then why wouldn't it be on a map? If it was a fish hatchery that was like run by like Fish and Game or whatever. They find, they find some bones near like the drainage point. But they identify them as dog bones. So like you said, dead dog streak continues. Hopefully it doesn't last forever. I don't want the dead dog streak to last forever. But luckily this time it's not at least like, number one, a dog we've come to know and love, or number two, like too gruesome of a shot of a dead dog.
Yeah.
But they don't have a lot of time to ruminate on the implications of these dog bones because they hear the Jeep start up and they see that Dr. Hoke is driving away in their vehicle because Maggie left the keys in it. But luckily the doctor is either terrible at driving or so thoroughly concussed that he forgets
concussion.
he forgets how to drive, and he rolls that thing like instantly. So they catch up to the rolled over vehicle. And I put in my notes, I guess that's concussion number 2 for the doctor because he's like got another head wound again. Maggie takes his pulse and determines that he's alive. Not the first time that she'll be taking people's pulses. Then we cut to they're at Paul's house, and Dr. Hoke is waking up, but he's been tied to the bed. And he's yelling at, like, Dr. Hoke yells at Maggie about draining the pond and letting them out. You know, he's like vague booking this. Like, just tell them what happened. Like, I hate it when movies like this, where he'll be like, you let them out, and if you tell the army, they'll kill all of us for this. It's like, for what? Use your words, dude. Like, I hate it when movies don't just say it. Because here's the thing. The characters in the movie, they don't know it's about Piranha. But I went to see a movie called Piranha, Shane. I know what's there.
So, I just got to rewind a teeny bit. So, you know what, like, the best thing for a multiple head wound or head injury is?
What's that?
Definitely not sleep, which they do to this guy twice. It's a miracle this guy made it to morning.
Well, yeah, okay, that's true. Yeah, you're not supposed to sleep with a head wound. But if you think about it, he's kind of a dick, so who cares? Yeah, that's the thing, is they tie him up and then, well, we don't really see how they pass the night. It's possible that they like do the recommended, every 2 hours, wake him up and make sure he's not dead.
I doubt it.
You don't think it seems like our drunk Paul and Skip Tracer Maggie would have done their due diligence?
No. And this guy's not smart enough to ask anyways. He like the worst self-sacrifice I think I've seen in a movie. But
oh man, we're not even there yet, dude. I don't even. Oh man. Okay, yeah, let's get there because I want to talk about that. What is it? In the living room, Paul is having drinks again because that's his personality. Yeah, Maggie, being that she's terrible at reading the room, asks like if Paul started drinking before or after his divorce. So it's like, yeah, okay. Paul's understandably annoyed with her for that line of questioning. And then Maggie's just asking a ton of questions. Maybe this is like why she's so good at what she does, because she has like a natural curiosity to her, but It just comes off as kind of annoying to Paul. She asks about how long he was married, where they lived, all that stuff. And then we get a little bit of exposition about like where he used to work. So Paul says that he used to work at a smelting factory, but it was shut down due to the pollution, sold to the army, and the army sold it to a developer to make a resort. Guess what? All of that matters.
Does.
All of these yes, like literally all of these things, they just like kind of snuck it in there, man. Straight up like hay bale and Assassin's Creed, just snuck it right in. So there you go. We know now. And then, Maggie, continuing her line of questioning, is asking about Paul's daughter. And then this is the part where it's like, she asks if his daughter lives with him, and he says yes. And that came as a surprise to me, considering he's an alcoholic. Like, should he be raising a kid? But then she's like on the couch next to him finally, after having wandered around the room for so long. And so like Paul gets a blanket and starts covering up himself and Maggie with it. And Maggie asks why he's so tense. And Paul's like, well, I guess it's because I'm not used to being around people. Except that he lives with his daughter, allegedly, and he clearly is friendly with Jack. But then Maggie's like, yeah, no kidding about you not being used to being around people, because I've been trying to hint that I wanted to be under the covers for 5 minutes now, apparently. So there you go. I think it's implied that there's like a romance starting to blossom between them, but there's not gonna be a lot of time for that. What with all of the
Yeah, folks, don't worry about it. It'll never.
It doesn't really culminate into much of anything.
Yeah.
But the next problem that they have to address is, without the Jeep, they have no way to get Dr. Hoke to town, which they need. They are finally concerned that he might have a skull fracture the next morning. So it's like, oh, we better get him to the hospital. So yeah, Paul says that they can use the raft. And Maggie's like, you've got to be kidding me. They go to the raft. Paul does a little bit of like, Huckleberry Finn thing, like, oh yeah, I constructed a raft much like Huckleberry Finn would have used or whatever. And Paul basically, I don't know how he did this math, but he says, oh yeah, this thing can easily hold 3 people. But also says they'd never used it because his daughter, who's currently at summer camp, is also like afraid to swim in the river. And then that's when the movie's like, hey, in case you don't believe that this kid is afraid to swim in the river, we cut to the summer camp where Susie is afraid to swim in the river, despite one of the counselors, who will come to know as Laura, is trying to convince her that there's no reason to be afraid. You've probably swam further than this before. And Susie, in a weirdly prescient moment, insists that she's afraid of stuff in the river getting to her. And then right at this moment, as if summoned, we get Dumont, the owner of the camp, and presumably the cousin to the people who are in the second movie. So none of the characters from the first movie show up in Piranha 2: The Spawning, but there is like people with the last name Dumont. So I'm assuming that they must be like relatives of this guy for some reason.
Like camp descendants or something.
Well, it's just like same surname. I
I wonder.
say.
I've never seen the second one. Have you?
Yes, and it doesn't even take place in the same place. It takes place in like the ocean, I believe.
Okay, so it's bad writing. Got it.
It's just unrelated, other than that they have the same last name.
I forgot, that's such a common name.
Yeah, Dumont. You see it all the time. So yeah, Dumont arrives to give Laura a letter, and then kind of a moment of like weirdly mean to this little girl who doesn't want to swim. He scolds Susie, says people eat fish, fish don't eat people. It's like, hey dude, Jaws just came out. Like, did you see that movie? But yeah, that's gonna be some ironic comeuppance for this. I'm sure we all know. He also like scolds Susie for not having intestinal fortitude. And then whenever like Laura asks if there's any letters for Susie, he's like, you're skunked again, Grogan, and leaves. It's like, why does he hate this little girl so much? Because she didn't get any letters. Then,
because he hates her dad.
well, he definitely does hate her dad, yes, and it does seem like he's taking it out on her. But like, there's one point later where some kid does something, like fakes an arrow injury, and then he like picks up the fake arrow, and like then yells Grogan. I'm like, but it's not her who did it. It was some other little boy. And in case you want to know the name of the camp, it's called Lost River Camp, because the name of the lake is Lost River Lake. Presumably because it's like a river that was dammed up, and that's why it's like all underwater now to like make the resort and everything. But we don't have any more time for these kids at camp, except we will so many more times, like too many times in my opinion. We get a cut over to our man Jack. He's at the edge of his little dock, like on the river. His feet are in the water. He's drinking some alcohol and tossing like chunks of meat in the water, presumably to attract fish to him so he can catch them. And he's doing what I would say is a weird story that he's telling his dog. Did you catch this? What he's telling Brandy about?
Yeah, and then he like yells at the dog when it's like uninteresting.
Oh yeah, so he's telling okay, here's what he's telling. He's telling his current dog Brandy the story of his first dog who was hit by a trolley car and killed.
Yeah.
And Brandy is distracted because she can like sense that they're piranha in the water and they're on the approach. So she's like agitated. And Jack is like upset. It's like, what, you didn't get the point of my story? And it's like, no, dude, the dog doesn't get the point of your story. Are you crazy? But he doesn't have a lot of time to think about that because the piranha just start devouring his legs. Yeah, he's screaming, kicking his blood everywhere. Mandy's barking. It's pretty grisly stuff. But then, smash cut back to the raft. Maggie is putting her hand in the water to test it. Dr. Hoke is like, don't do that. There are piranha. And he's the only one who says piranha that way. Paul's dismissive. He's like, yo, those are tropical fish. This is cold mountain water. That's not possible. But then Maggie reminds him of all of the crazy experiments they saw at the lab what did he forget? Like that they saw all of those like deformed fish corpses and then that weird fish monster. Like they saw some stuff.
To be fair, he was trashed. So like,
that's true. Yeah. And he probably is again. And what is it? I just thought of something. What's that?
It's probably my favorite scene in the movie at the end when he like, they're like all getting like taken care of by like the paramedics and like he's not responsive and they just keep dabbing his lips with the tequila.
Yeah. It's like, you're just trying to drink some of this. Because he's like basically catatonic. No, we'll get to that. I don't want to talk too much about that yet because like that's
sorry. Yeah, that was
okay. So this is the first of a couple times that Dr. Hoke will like scold Maggie as being the ones who released the piranha, and I still feel like that gets glazed over so many times that she's kind of like the one to do this. But yeah, as the raft is approaching Jack's dock. They see Brandy barking and, what is it? Paul's like, hey, this is a big deal. Like he's usually more calm than that. And that's when he keeps calling Brandy a he and like calls him like boy and stuff like that. Cause I thought Brandy was a girl's name, but maybe it's named after like the alcohol because Jack was also an alcoholic. But yeah, they pull the raft up and they see what like, the dock is covered in blood. Jack's hat is on the ground, also blood. So they, go to the dock and approach the land and they find Jack's body and pretty gruesome. Like his feet are basically gnawed to the bone. Like this basically skeleton feet with like a bunch of flesh on it. They're like, he must have dragged himself up from the dock before he bled out or whatever. And then Paul goes to find a shovel, which I guess it means he's going to just bury Jack here now before they move on.
Yeah, it's kind of gruesome, or not gruesome, but just kind of grim. It's like,
I feel like you should call it coroner or something. And then I was just like, and then you get Brandy who's sitting in like a doorless like junk car in the yard, is just sitting in it. I'm like, oh, poor Brandy, because they don't take Brandy with them. So I hope he or she is okay. Back to the summer camp. I know that we were all excited to get back to this storyline. Susie and another counselor, who we'll later learn is Betsy, are trying to brainstorm ways for Susie to get out of the swimming race. Meanwhile, they're also throwing darts at a dartboard with like a picture of Dumont's face on it. So like pretty mean, but also makes sense because Dumont is also super mean.
For sure.
Yeah, but I wanted to mention that I don't think we get Betsy's name here, and I actually don't remember getting Betsy's name until like spoiler alert, she dies. Yeah, because then that's when like both Laura and Susie say it.
He might have said it when he went out to talk to them when they were sitting out like just staring at the water, talking about going for a swim.
Oh, and they're like on the verge of actually going for a swim. Yeah, that's possible.
But I don't remember, and it's very inconsequential to everything else happening. So
it's true; it doesn't change much. Where was I? Oh yeah. The solution. So Betsy runs through a few different ideas that are kind of like non-starters, but then she comes to the solution that she will like take a red marker, like color in on Susie's leg with it, and then tell her to limp a lot. And then she'll like add a bandage to her knee so she can like fake an injury. So that's their plan to keep Susie from having to swim. Which again, I feel like you can just not, right? Like, I don't know, in a summer camp, can they compel you to swim if you don't want to?
I mean, it was the 70s, so
that's true. Yeah.
It's hard to say what they would compel you to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Probably wear a corduroy suit, I would guess.
Yeah.
Cut to random father and son in a canoe. The dad is reaching into the water for something. I don't know if they had like a snag on a fishing line or something. It doesn't really matter. It's just an excuse for him to have his arm in the water because, hey, what do you think happens? He gets devoured. His arm is getting all gnawed up. And rather than, I don't know, pull it out of the water, he allows himself to like capsize the canoe. He's in the water getting devoured, blood everywhere. His son climbs to the top of the like capsized canoe in order to like stay out of the water and stuff like that. Back at the raft, Dr. Hoke is explaining that the piranha were made as part of Operation Razor Teeth. So apparently the person who names operations had gotten his appropriate dose of literal juice. Because we're just going to call it razor teeth. And the idea was they would use them to infest the rivers of Vietnam and wreak havoc on the Viet Cong, behind their lines and their water systems, which seems like that would be a war crime. Because how do you differentiate between like, civilian and military based like parts of the river? Clearly these piranha are not very discerning.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so he explains, like Dr. Hoke explains, they attempted to poison the piranha, but some of them survived, and the ones that survived ate the ones that died, and then started breeding in order to like create the super species that exists today. And then this is the part where inexplicably Maggie blames Dr. Hoke for releasing him into the river. She's like, "This is where kids swim and everything," and it's like, rather than pointing out that she's the one that released them, he says, if you want to talk about who the killers are, talk about the politicians in Washington.
Yeah.
It's like, no, let's talk about the lady who carelessly released them into the river. So like that's time number 2 where he's basically getting blamed for this. But that's when whenever
he's like, I'm just a scientist.
Well, the dumbest kid in school, Paul Grogan, after hearing them talk about kids being on the water and about how the real murders are Washington, he realizes, oh, kids, I have a kid. She is camping on the water, meaning that there's a chance she could get eaten. So that's, like bad dad Grogan finally comes to the realization that he has a kid that he should worry about. He explains that what water's released from the creek through a dam into the lake every couple of days to refresh it. meaning that the piranha, if assuming that they are at the dam, they will be released into the lake. Cut again to the summer camp, because we gotta keep coming back to this summer camp. I hate this summer camp storyline, dude.
It was kind of dumb because it's like, okay, we get she's at camp. Who gives a shit?
It really didn't add anything to the story, and it's just like so frustrating to keep coming back to it. There's a bunch of kids in inner tubes on the lake, which like this section, it's more like a river. It isn't even really like a lake at that point.
Right.
Of it, they're all splashing as much as they can. I'm like, oh, are they splashing because they're going to attract piranha attention? No, they aren't. It's just for us to see. They just want us to see that kids like make a lot of noise. Like, yeah, no shit, dude. Like I've met kids before. Like I know how it works. You don't have to establish it. It's like, oh man, the audience will never believe that kids will splash enough to attract piranha attention if we don't establish that kids splash a lot.
Right.
Anyway, back to the damn raft. So Dr. Hoke is talking to Maggie and Paul, who once again blame him. And he's like, well, you're blaming me? Like, you're the ones who pulled the plug and released them. And then like Paul is like, you better shut up or I'll stick this oar down your throat or whatever.
Well, he's like, then maybe I'll just dip you in the water. See, it's like, all right,
it's like, all right, Paul, like clearly you're like you've been drunk
out,
half this time. How do you even know? But then the raft is nearing the capsized canoe. They see the boy on the top of it. The boat is sinking, so they they're on the clock. They got to go get him. And I guess Dr. Hoke, having taken to heart all of the things that Paul and Maggie were saying, decides he needs a redemption arc. And what better way to do it than to leave the safety of the raft and jump into the water and swim to the boy for no good reason. Because it's not like he can take the boy off the canoe. Because the boy's...
And honestly, it's not like he could swim because
Piranha, the whole
just in general
title of the movie. I mean, he can swim, but he's going to eat. He gets eaten. But yeah, so like as expected, Dr. Hoke is starting to get devoured. He is able to lift the boy up and put him into the raft, which again is something he could have done from on the raft. It wasn't like the boat was sinking that fast because he still had to wait for the raft to get there. Yeah, Maggie pulls Dr. Hoke out. But you know what? He's shredded by this point. Like he's basically like, huge chunks of his torso are bitten up. It's pretty gnarly looking. And he's like on the verge of like passing out. And Paul's like, Paul, like finally a moment of decency from him. He like takes off his jacket and covers Dr. Hoke with it. But then he's like, oh, hey, by the way, how do we stop these piranha, by the way? We never talked about that while we're too busy guilt tripping you this entire ride. We didn't actually ask you how to stop them. Too bad. Dr. Hoke's dead. It's over. Which apparently, by the way, the original premise for Piranha 2 was, I think James Cameron had the idea, or maybe it was the writers. I can't remember who all was involved. But the idea was that it would actually be Dr. Hoke survived this and he's all like mangled now. And he decides to make like a super version of Piranha to get revenge on everyone for blaming him for the first Piranha. It's like, that'd be good. I would like that because he clearly got like the shaft in this entire situation.
And then like for sure Piranha like 100% sunk the Titanic.
Oh, are you doing like a James Cameron bit? And then they take, you know what they do after that? They take some piranha to this planet with like these blue cat aliens. And then the piranha are all trying to eat them. And then they have to like fly on top of some weird giant birds to attack them.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be a good movie. They should make that.
I dig it.
All right. Oh my God. Another interlude to the camp. This is literally going to be the death of me in this camp stuff. So Dumont is telling the campers that it is time for lunch. And then he finds the picture of himself on the dartboard and grabs it and rips it up. That's it. We didn't need that scene. That was such a pointless scene just to show that Dumont knows he's not liked. Great. Back at the raft, Paul's discussing what they know about the piranha, not realizing that Hoke's hand is like outstretched over the water and he's dripping blood into the water, which, you know, because the piranha are also sharks, I guess, they sense the blood and are going to come out and get it. The piranha, I couldn't tell if the point, I put in my notes that they were demonstrating intelligence here, but Paul kind of explains it away as that Dr. Hoke's blood is seeping through the raft, so the piranha are trying to get to it. So they're starting to chew up like the ropes that are used to like tie the raft together, like the logs for the raft.
I kind of like that scene. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, but that was the thing, is like Paul was saying, it was because of Dr. Hoke's blood. So his idea is he's going to dump the body overboard so the piranha stop, which he does, even though the little boy from the canoe doesn't like this. He's confused and believes that the body of Dr. Hoke is actually his dad. But then when they dump the body, it doesn't stop the piranha at all. They're still eating the bindings for the logs. Like, so that's what I mean. Like, I don't think the theory that they, like, the blood was attracting them, I thought that was like a red herring. They actually
the blood would still be soaked in those ropes.
Oh, okay, maybe. So you think they just were like, no, it's too late. We already got some blood rope, baby. So
yeah, because like there's no other evidence of them destroying anything to get to people. I don't know. That's a good point.
They pop inner tubes and stuff.
Yeah, but I feel like that's just like collateral of sharp teeth, right?
Well, they only got one tool in their repertoire, dude.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's all collateral for sharp teeth.
Would you say
Operation Razor Teeth? Yes.
Yeah, nice.
Yes, it is.
Solid. Got him in one, guys.
Got him. We did it. We did the thing.
We did it. Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Yeah, so basically, what is it? They are able to hold the section of the raft together long enough for them to get ashore. I think they like have to like do like a jump off of there to get like off and get onto shore in time, like avoid touching water. But we're still on the clock, Shane. So Paul is like, I gotta get to the dam, and he just starts booking it through the woods to get to the dam before they release the water and let the piranha through. We hear the sound of the horn, which according to a sign, it says the horn is the sound that precedes the release of water. Will Paul make it in time? Well, good news. There's some cartoons on a TV that the guy working at the dam tower is like watching these cartoons, so he's like not moving as quickly as he should. So he hasn't even started opening the flow gates. And then there's like a commercial about like the upcoming Aquarina resort opening, which I think that's just to remind us that there's a resort. So it's like, hey, in case you're wondering where these piranha are going to find some more meals, good news. Dick Miller has a resort. But luckily, Paul is able to get to the guy before he finishes opening up the gates. So everything's safe, right? The piranha are contained. No.
You know what this reminded me of?
They're not. What?
You know the scene in Monty Python and the Holy Grail when Lancelot's running to that castle?
Oh,
It keeps cutting between what they're doing in the castle and him just sprinting there.
Well, especially since like when they cut, it's always that dude like who's supposed to be opening those gates, but instead of like working the valves, he's like watching a cartoon. Like, it's like, man, then they say TV rots brains, but it actually saved some people from piranha.
Yeah, I mean,
so anyways, we get a cut to sudden army vehicles arriving, an entire convoy. And I was like in my notes, and I was like, what are they going to do? Fight the piranha with guns? Like, that's not how this works. No, it's not how any of this works. We're introduced to Colonel Waxman and then to another scientist, Dr. Mengers. It seems like both of them are dismissive of the entire piranha thing, even though number one, they knew the project existed, and number two, they did show up with like all these vehicles and people. But they have a couple soldiers throw like a leg of some kind of creature tied to a rope into the water and pull it out to like do bait, and the thing comes out like half eaten. It's like, oh, I guess there are piranha in the river. And then that's when Dr. Mengers explains that they're going to poison the water with retinone, which if I'm not mistaken, isn't that the same thing that they were using on the roaches in the nest?
Yeah, it was. Which is, I'm like, I don't know if that was a coincidence, but they couldn't have been because it was at the same time. So
I know, it's like it's just known as like a huge deal back then. Like it's he poisoned and everything with it. And then
I guess.
that's one of the things is like they're like, won't that kill everything? Like, won't that kill all life, not just the piranha? And the colonel's just like, sometimes you have to kill to save. It's like, all right, buddy. I'm not sure if I want any of my kids serving in your unit. But then Paul asks what happens if they notice they're being poisoned and they try to escape. And Dr. Mentres is like, they're fish, dude. Like, how are they gonna do that? And then there's like this weird moment. It's kind of like one of those like Dennis Reynolds, like the implication kind of things, because they're like, Dr. Mentres is like, since you, Paul and Maggie, you're the only two civilians aware of the situation, then it's important for you to be part of the team. Like, oh no, it feels like a veiled threat. So yeah, but then what is it? We have like a scene of like the guy starting to like dump the retinone into the water. Paul is in a room with a map with the colonel and trying to explain that there is a way to get around the dam via some stream, like forks and streams, like upriver, that will still lead to the lake. So it's possible for like the piranha to get around. And, again, the colonel's very dismissive of this, although we find out later why he's so dismissive of it. It's not because he doesn't believe that the piranha can do this. Now, what Dr. Menger's excuse is, I don't know, because she's talking to Maggie and says that piranha don't have like the intelligence or the motivation to seek a bypass like that. And I'm like, what is her PhD in, like being wrong all the time? Because she is wrong. And then when Maggie says that Dr. Hoke was breeding them to be intelligent and resilient, Dr. Menges is like, oh, Bob was a dreamer. And then that's when Maggie's like, oh, that seems suggestive. What do you mean, Bob? And this is when Dr. Menges is like, look, the army is going to let a few people die in order to keep this thing quiet. And then meanwhile, Colonel Waxman talking to Paul is like, this is a matter of national security. And then that's when Paul, not being the smartest guy in town, says, well, what if I blab? What if I tell them? And then it's like, well, we'll put you in armed guard in a tent and keep you quarantined from everybody. Then it's like, way to go, Paul. All you had to do is not say that you might reveal it publicly and you wouldn't be in this situation.
Well, and that's even Maggie says that too. She's like, shut up.
I know. It's like Paul, what are you like? Is your buzz still on? What are you doing? Now later on that night in the tent, Maggie and Paul are hatching an escape plan. They need to distract the guard so that they can knock him out and escape. Paul tells Maggie that she needs to distract him. And it's kind of a funny moment. She's like, what if he's gay? He's like, well, then I'll distract him. It's like, but of course, whenever Maggie comes out, she has the charm of, somebody who, has no charm. She's doing a really bad job of it. And she even comes out and asks the soldier if he's gay. She's like, what are you talking about? Like he gets really defensive about it. And she tries to change the subject. He's like, no, what were you saying earlier about gay? It's very funny. And this is the moment that I didn't realize happened in the movie because I missed it all of the 3 times that I watched it. But so what happens is she turns him around so that he's facing away from the tent to her. And she says, look, it's Superman. And she opens up her shirt. And then at that exact moment, Paul comes out and knocks out the soldier and is able to take his keys and stuff. And I didn't realize that she did that. I thought she just yelled Superman or whatever. He was just dumb and distracted, but that was that. And that was the scene that I was telling you is usually these movies, especially the Roger Corman movies, there's a lot of kind of like salacious female nudity scenes and stuff like that. But this one, it wasn't actually the actress. It was a stand-in who was like a local like waitress at like a local restaurant. And so it was a body double. So that's probably why it was such a fast scene. Cause it's just like it's like blink if you miss it, like cut and cut back scene, which is kind of funny. Cause usually, like I said, like the nudity and like Roger Corman things can be quite gratuitous. And this is one of the few where he was like, I think it takes away from the movie, so we're not going to keep too much of it in there. It's probably why this one has a better reputation than some of the Corman stuff of this era.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's just a weird scene. I don't know. Again, they could have just knocked him out.
Well, they did knock him out.
But like, never mind.
You're like, why do we have to see a woman's breasts at all for this? Like, why was that? Why is that necessary?
Weird. And
well,
this
here's the thing.
up...
Like, having watched the movie 3 times in preparation for this, I didn't even notice it because I was looking away or typing notes or doing something else, like anything else, and I didn't see it. So definitely not important to the plot. So okay, so now on the run in an army jeep, Paul realizes that he needs to try to like warn Dumont about what's going on about the piranha. So he like asks like, yo, Maggie, you got a dime? And then they stop at like a payphone. He calls Dumont, but Dumont, because of like Paul's reputation as being a drunk, is just like, yeah, you're just drunk. What's wrong with you? And like, he won't even let Paul talk to his daughter. He just tells him to like sober up and fly right. Which, by the way, I don't know if you noticed this. This is one of those details that stuck out to me. Did you see the newspaper Dumont had on his bed that he had been reading?
No.
I only could read 2 stories on it. The main headline at the top was "Dogs Tear Up Newborn Baby."
Oh, okay.
And then another story in the top right, like a preview of one further, was "Big Rattler Bites Teen." Like, what is going on and wherever this newspaper is from? These animals are going wild.
Yeah, it's I didn't catch that at all.
Yeah, I did, and it was weird. So, yeah, but anyways, Paul and Maggie back in the Jeep are driving to camp themselves, but of course, because the cops don't have anything better to do, they end up pulling them over. Because of Paul's reputation for having like a drunk and disorderly arrest or two, the trooper believes that Paul must be drunk. Paul immediately consents to taking a breath test, but apparently they had to go back to the station to do it. It was like, was that how that was back then? Like, you couldn't just do one at the vehicle? No idea why, but back at the station, the cop ends up getting on the phone with Waxman. And after talking to Colonel Waxman, he agrees to help cover up all the piranha stuff by basically just holding Paul and Maggie and not allowing them to talk to anyone. So, like, violating their constitutional rights, no big deal. So that's where we are with that. And also there was an old movie that was being watched by one of the soldiers that Colonel Waxman was hanging out with. And I never got the chance to look up what that movie was. And since you looked up the one in Chopping Mall, did you figure out what this one was, or did you not look it up?
No, I didn't look it up. I recognized it. I'm like, this looks familiar. And I'm like, I should look this up. And I'm like, I wrote a note down and I forgot to do it. Like,
yeah, some kind of like worm looking thing, It's like, it's really interesting looking. But neither here nor there. Cause we got to, what we got to do. We have got to,
what do we have to do?
We have to go back to the camp. We can't have this movie without the camp. So we get a shot of a campfire story thing where Betsy's telling the kids a scary story. I don't see the point of that scene at all, other than that, I don't know, that the camp people do camp stuff at camp. I don't know. I guess it's more screen time for Betsy because she's a favorite of like the director. But then we get a cut to Colonel Waxman calling up Buck Gardner, the owner of the Aquarina Resort, and to warn him about the calls about, he says like the calls about the piranha will be pranks. So tell your staff to ignore them. I was like, man, it's like, I wouldn't think you could find a more negligent like figure than the mayor in Jaws. But right. Like these guys are going for the
like
the gold
actively.
in this. Yeah, like they know there's danger and just refuse. But then we find out why, which is that Colonel Waxman is a silent partner in the resort, which explains why he's willing to cover up the piranha thing. This is like he has money on the line here. And, you know, since they said that the resort was bought from the army after they shut down the smelting plant, it's like, I bet you there's some shady business deals afoot too. So like, there's a lot of things that need to be covered up here. Back at the camp, we get the scene we kind of mentioned earlier where Betsy and Laura are sitting by the lake. They talk about doing a race to the island, which, by the way, I don't know what island they mean because that part of the lake is so narrow. But Betsy's hesitant. She feels like something's wrong, like something doesn't feel right. But she basically gets talked into it by Laura. But before they can do it, like literally when they're on the verge of about to do it, Dumont comes and interrupts them. And he explains that he thinks that like some kids have been swimming, doing night swims. And then the girls kind of fool him into thinking there are already people out there swimming. So he's like distracted. Back in the jail cell, Maggie is like breaking some pipes from her like sink and toilet and stuff like that. And she tells the story about a guy that she was tracking named Mo Schneider, who was a plumber who kept getting arrested for indecent exposure.
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah. But then he tried to use his plumbing knowledge to escape from prison. So like, that's why she's like doing everything he had done, like break the pipes and stuff like that. The noise she makes, summons one of the officers to come and investigate. So she's like, look, there's like water everywhere. I'm going to catch my death. So the guy comes in and then she like concusses him in the back of the head with like one of the porcelain pieces of the toilet bowl.
She said like toilet cover, toilet seat cover or something.
Yeah, from the toilet lid, so like knocks that dude entirely out. But then because the keys are somehow attached to his pants, so she needs, in order to like get herself and Paul out, she has to like take off the cop's pants. So
these are some like shitty jokes. I'm sorry. Like
they're pretty bad.
I try to stay positive about some of this. Was poorly written.
Are you talking about how whenever she's trying to like take off his pants?
Yeah.
I would have thought you'd have. Yeah, I would have thought you could have gotten a man's pants off faster than that. It's like, all right, dude. Like she's like trying to take the pants off an unconscious man that's like way bigger than she is. But Maggie does manage to free Paul, and they steal a patrol car. And then we get like a kind of funny scene, but also kind of stupid one, where they drive by a coffee shop or like a diner, and the cop who arrested them originally is walking out, and they drive by and throw the pants at him.
Yeah, just smack him in the face. That was funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny, but it's also like, yeah, but he's like there. Like he could now follow you. But yeah, so we get a series of intense string music as we get, or not intense string music, but some like joyful string music as we get overhead shots of the crowd at the resort for the grand opening of Buck Gardner's Aquarina. Buck gives a short speech to the cheering crowd, and then he goes to help a little girl cut a fake ribbon. It's just like a bunch of streamers using fake cardboard scissors, but because it doesn't work because it has no blade, he just rips it in half because it's just like streamers. Now is like a bunch of cutting between like the camp and so it's going to be cutting between the camp, cutting between the resort, and then cutting between like, what is it? The race against time as Maggie and Paul try to get to the camp, but before kids get eaten by piranhas. So there you go. Back at the camp, we see a kid with a Native American headdress imitating like a Native American like war cry. And I was like, well, that kid's absolutely canceled now because he can't be doing that as a white kid. Dumont blows a whistle to begin the water competition. This is the part where the kid with like a fake arrow through him goes there. And then he like yells like Grogan. It's like, that's not the Grogan girl. That's not
Grogan.
That's not Susie. Yeah. Robot house.
Yeah, this confused me for a minute because they don't really tell you that's his daughter. So I thought, was one of the campers his daughter? I'm like, man, she's pretty old. or the counselor. Like, this kind of messed me up for a minute because I thought the little girl was his. And then when he like said that, I thought maybe the blonde girl was his daughter. Then the counselor.
It made no sense for him to yell Grogan right there.
Yeah,
because we know what his daughter looks like. Because earlier on, I don't think I mentioned it, but while they were, before they started the raft journey, while Maggie was asking all her probing questions of Paul, she like picked up a framed photo of Susie. So that's how we knew who Susie was. But also, Susie, Dumont was calling her Grogan earlier when he was scolding her about not swimming and then making fun of her for not getting any letters.
Yeah.
So there's a lot happening here. Where were we? So Lauren and Betsy line up all the kids as they pick their buddies and prepare to do water stuff. For whatever reason, Dumont is like really gung-ho about this, saying that he says that we will sort the tortoises from the hares and the sinkers from the swimmers, which the way he phrased it leads me to believe that he doesn't understand the point of tortoise and the hare story. Because he seems to suggest that the tortoises will lose. That wasn't how that story went, famously.
But this one kind of, the hares did lose. A lot of people lost on this day. So,
do you want to get into this now, or do you want to wait till that scene happens? Because I have a lot of thoughts about that.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, because I have a lot of thoughts for how the children react to being devoured, which is not much.
Not shy of killing kids.
No, the kids are not. The kids deserve. Okay, never mind. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Look, man. If I get even touched by something in the water, I'm booking it out of there. I'm not gonna sit in my inner tube and scream for 30 minutes. Anyways, in the police car on the way to the camp, Paul realizes that because there was salt water going into the pool where the piranha originally were, these piranha can live in both fresh and salt water. And they're heading to the ocean where they will no longer be able to be contained, and they'll be able to breed and grow and all of that stuff. So he's finally understanding, hey, there's some serious stakes here, but that isn't going to stop him from trying to rescue his little girl. Back to the camp, because of course, I'm just excited to get to the end of this camp storyline. The kids are jumping and screaming in the water as kids do, mostly in inner tubes. And that's why I was like, is this even like a race? This doesn't seem like a structured activity. It's like, I guess this is their warm up. It's not time for the race yet. Dumont goes and confronts Susie because she's sitting reading a comic book by a tree, and it was Mickey Mouse, if you were wondering. And she had some other comics scattered around her. Ones that caught my eye included Star Wars and Dick Tracy, so she has pretty good taste. Yeah, Dumont is not going to take the hurt knee as an excuse and tells Susie that she needs to get a tube and get ready for the tube race. Back to the police car. Paul almost kills himself and Maggie because he's passing by a Sunday driver, his quotes, in an RV. But as he pulls like into the lane, the oncoming lane, there is another vehicle coming, but he just off-roads it, hits a mailbox, and then gets back on the road. So it's fine. Just a federal crime for destroying a mailbox.
Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah, not for him. Not today.
Yeah, not after they escaped jail.
Yeah, not after they escaped jail and stole a cop's pants. Back at the inner tube race at camp, Dumont fires his little gun to get the race going. It looks like it's some kind of relay, like people in like the kids in inner tubes, like swimming to one end of the lake, quote unquote, and the other. I'm not going to spend a lot of time unpacking that because it doesn't matter. Our main focus was Susie, who intelligently decided to hide under a nearby canoe so that she can avoid the water. Yeah, she made the right call. A little bit of cross-cutting as the police car is flying down the road and children are doing their tube racing. But then finally, we hear our piranha sound, the drill in the water, meaning we might finally get some kills. We get a glimpse as a piranha beelines for one of the little girls. She's screaming, but because of all the splashing and general pandemonium of the children's activities, the only one who seems to notice is Betsy, because she like points it out. It's like, hey, something seems to be wrong. We get a few more up close shots of the piranhas attacking some kids. But whenever we get longer shots, it's still just them splashing in water. I don't know why they didn't add blood effects yet. Like this scene gets better when they start adding the blood effects, but when they first start, it's just splashing and yelling, and it's no different than earlier. There's a pretty cool effect though whenever like Dumont finally notices that like something's going on with the kids, so he's like staring at the water, and like one of the piranha just like jumps out of the water. Cool. It's like it starts biting his face. It's like, that's what you get, dude. And that's what I put in my notes here is like these kids don't really seem like they want to live because none of them seem to be in too much of a rush to try to get out of the water. And that's what annoyed me about this scene. Is like they're just screaming and like flopping around in the water. It's like, move in a direction. Any direction. Like,
yeah.
It was just very frustrating for me. I'm like, maybe these kids had it coming. Like if this is how they deal with a life and death situation, maybe it was for the best.
Oh my God.
What?
Nothing.
Get out of there. Some of them are trying to be like innovative. They're like standing on the inner tubes, which is an interesting tactical maneuver, but it doesn't really succeed. Susie, though, however, she sees like what's going on, and she wants to come out to rescue her friends Betsy and Laura, the counselors. So she tries to push a canoe, but she's not strong enough. So she instead grabs like an inflatable raft. This is the point where it's like, all right, Dumont is at least like not a coward. He's like in the water, like hauling kids out, like, covered in blood. He's getting bit, but he's like trying to get kids out of there. That's why I was like, I feel like the movie in another moment of trying to blame people for what's going on, like tries to put some blame on Dumont for this. And it's like, what are you supposed to just like
not his fault.
Take any call from some random drunk parent who says there's going to be piranha in your river? Like, no, that's not how this works. But yeah, so the tube that Laura and Betsy are in is getting gnawed, but luckily Susie gets there with the inflatable boat. Laura is able to get onto it pretty quickly, but for whatever reason, they're not quite able to get to Betsy. And she's like reaching out to them, and she's like she's so close, but she gets got and she gets pulled under, which is actually a pretty cool effect. I guess they did that in a pool. It was like they attached a bunch of like fake rubber piranha and then like a bunch of blood capsules and then like had a winch that like pulled her down. So that's why it like looked like that.
Yeah.
But then
that was probably the most effective piranha kill.
Probably, yeah, because the they did have like the appropriate amount of like, you got a little bit of emotional heft because clearly she had a bond with Laura and with Susie, and they have like that moment of like, Betsy, no,
right,
and like the sad music. So it's like, yeah, probably the most effective of these kills anyway. But yeah, so she's gone. Gonzilla, she's dead. Paul, they've arrived on the scene. What is it? So Paul tells Maggie to go call the resort, warn them what's going on. He's going to go and, get Susie. So he goes and gets onto he basically gets the canoe that Susie couldn't get. So Maggie's on the phone. She's calling it Buck Gardner. Buck Gardner gets the phone call, doesn't take it seriously. He's just like, oh, sure, yeah, piranha, yada, yada, yada. Like, he's just doing his thing. But luckily, we got some good news because Paul is able to retrieve Susie and Laura from the inflatable raft before, it gets popped by enterprising young piranha. We get, like, an upward panning shot from, like, the lake up, like, the part of the lake where the kids were inner tubing. And it's, like, kind of haunting because, like, where there was splashing and noise, it's like now like completely silent, and there's like some tubes still floating and like random refuse and stuff like that. So that was actually an effective shot, like to juxtapose the chaos of the kids, like now the stillness of the water. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. And then it's like what Maggie is on the way. It's like, yeah, there's an ambulance that's on the way to tend to the remaining children. Paul is asks Laura if she minds like taking care of the kids because he and Maggie need to drive to the resort to try to warn everybody. And this is the scene that I said, like now like a very bloody and injured Dumont is like sitting next to like the bloody covered bodies of dead children.
Yeah.
And Paul's like glaring at him. and he looks like he's like really like beat up over it. That's again, like how would you ever believe this dude's story? Like that's wild. So like again, that's like the second person that has been blamed for this when it's not their fault, basically. They already lost one since Dr. Hoke is dead. Where are we at? So Paul bids farewell to his daughter, tells her to stay behind and help Laura with the situation, mostly try to keep her out of harm's way while he goes to fight Piranha. Back at the resort, we just get tons of scenes of people celebrating and having a good time. They're in the water, they're on boats, they're playing chicken, they're on rafts and inner tubes. Typical fun summer stuff. We get a bit of humor at the expense of a fat guy because he falls out of a chair because he sits in it weird because fat people fall, and that's funny. That's what comedy is. The interesting thing about him is that he has a Lone Star beer shirt. I was like, hey, Joe Bob Briggs.
Love me some Lone Star. I do. Have you ever had it?
I've never had it. I just know it from the last drive-in with Joe Bob Briggs. Like,
we have to get you down to Texas for a little bit.
Yeah. Does this take place in Texas? I don't know if I ever realized that, but I feel like it does, right?
There's a lot of water for it to take place in Texas.
But isn't, like, I thought that the state trooper was a Texas state trooper.
I believe it. I mean, there's parts of Texas, there's like rivers and stuff, but.
Well, I mean, that's why probably where the lake's so small. Because like if it were here, it'd be a much bigger lake. Anyways, I was just pointing that out because I was like, what an outdated joke to have just like some fat guy fall out of a chair and be like, that's comedy, baby. It is in Texas. That's what I thought. Yep. So anyway, as a random aside, Buck Gardner's assistant, Whitney, is telling him that some of the visitors are recognizing some of the attractions from like Florida and other places. And that's when Buck reveals that like literally every one of the attractions that he has is secondhand from somewhere else. And then he goes on to greet a random senator that's at this like resort opening. It's very weird. I don't know why they would do that.
It was weird. Yeah.
The only thing that was interesting to me about that was one of the events or one of the attractions was like a swimming pig. And we do get to see that pig. I'm like, I want to see this swimming pig so bad. Reminds me of that movie. Do you remember the movie Gordy?
Mm-hmm.
About the pig, the swimming pig that like rescues that kid from drowning?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to see a swimming pig, dude.
How'd that work out for you?
What?
How'd that work out for you?
What?
The swimming pig.
Well, we don't see it swim in this movie.
I know. That was a joke.
Oh, you're saying like, how did I enjoy the thing I didn't get?
Yeah.
You're trying to mess with me.
I'm trying.
Yeah, I didn't. We just get to, well, I mean, we got to see him, but he was in a land enclosure, not in a water enclosure. Yeah. So, okay. Colonel Waxman and Dr. Mengers arrive and they go to speak with Buck. They explain to him that, Paul and Maggie have busted out of jail, and Buck's like, yeah, dude, they already tried to call me. Mengers, in an effort to be as evil as possible, tells Buck to call local news stations and tell them that they might get crank calls about stuff going on. Even though, like, at this point, there are legions of corpses, including like a solid pile of child corpses. It's like
solid pile of children.
Yeah. It's like, how many more people need to die here before you guys like deal with it? But like Mengers is probably the real villain and never gets a comeuppance, which is kind of a bummer. Spoiler alert. So some lady greets Colonel Waxman as they're on the way, like him and Dr. Mengers are on their way to like a tiki boat. I don't know why they go on this tiki boat. It's never really explained. They just want to like go out in the water in case they see some piranha activity. Because if that was their plan, it definitely backfires for Waxman. The lady greets Colonel Waxman and is like, hey, General Waxman. He's like, oh, it's Colonel actually. And then she's like, oh, it's not General yet? Why not? And he's like, oh, politics, man, politics. And then like, as he leaves, he calls her a cow behind her back to Dr. Mengers. I'm like, look, dude, it's not her fault that you're not a general yet. Like maybe try not like letting a ton of people die when you're in charge of a science project. So cut to a really long scene of a dude, like, what is that called? Waterboarding? It's like water skiing, but like a single board. So yeah, that long scene of the dude waterboarding on the back of the speedboat. And I put in my notes, I'll be honest, it doesn't seem like this lake is big enough for that kind of activity, if I'm being like just completely honest. And they pass a boat where like a bunch of the camera lingers on some scuba divers, like jumping out of that boat into the water. Are they like with the army? Like, I did not know what this was. Like, if these guys were with the army, because there's no reason to scuba dive here otherwise. But yeah, one of the scuba divers, like, while he's down there, gets tangled up in some vegetation. He tries to stop to untangle himself, but then we get piranha sound, and he is attacked mostly off screen, at least until his body, I presume is his, floats to the top shortly. Back to the boat and the waterboarder. The women on the boat seem obsessed with going as fast as they can to try to knock him off and into the water. But then as they go by, he sees the corpse getting eaten by piranhas. And I think it's the scuba diver from a second ago, but it's kind of hard to tell because the guy's pretty chewed up. And I never really got to see his face because he was wearing a mask. The waterboarder is trying desperately to signal to the women that on the boat that he wants to like get out of here, like pull out of there. But because they're apparently the dumbest people on earth and can't recognize a signal that's trying to tell them something is clearly wrong, they say they need to try to get him to fall off at first. Then they realize something's wrong, and then they try to stop, and then he's going to get eaten by piranhas. And I was really hoping for like a moment where he gets like attacked by piranha while he was skiing, but I guess they just didn't have the technology for that.
Well, yeah, I don't. This scene confused me a lot.
It was just kind of dumb, pointless.
Yeah, well, I was kind of like, I thought there was gonna be a really cool like like they create a huge like wake, and he like goes on like near it, and they eat him, and he comes through the other side. It's just his hands on the thing.
Yeah, basically any kind of attack that like involves.
You know what I mean? This. How cool would that have been? Where it was just like all that's left on the tugging the thing is his hands.
That would have been cool. Like anything would have been cool if he had like sunk into the water and they started again, and now there were piranha on him, like nibbling at him while he was skiing. Like anything would have been better than what we got, which was nothing.
Oh, you mean the 10 jump cuts between all the boats crashing and the car going over a hill in slow motion and all that stuff? That was this scene. Like after like.
So what happened is, so what happens is they are driving. The women that are driving the boat go a little too close to another boat. He tumbles off. He falls, like the waterboarder.
Mm-hmm.
The other boat with the speedboat guy with the helmet on swerves to avoid him, and then is heading towards the boat, which I believe is the boat that the scuba divers went off of.
Yeah, the wooden one.
Swerves towards that. That guy was dumping like something into the water, it looked like, and the speedboat hits that one, but like ramps over it. That boat explodes for some reason, and the other boat just flies over it, and that's the scene.
Well, no, then it jump cuts to the cop car, right?
What? No, what are you talking about?
Don't they cut in the car, like they're him driving super fast to get to the resort?
Oh, just like him driving, like around the corner or whatever.
So like they're just randomly jumping cuts in of him just driving the car super fast.
Yeah,
but then then they like do slow mo shots.
Oh, I thought you were saying the car crashed. I was like, I don't
know. No, but like it was just like they kept cutting in, like they kept cutting back to them driving like
I gather you wanted to make it look frenetic and stuff like that, but it just looked like kind of confusing and stupid. That part did.
Yeah, then at the end it's all slow mo. It's like, okay, what the fuck?
And then that one that one boat just like ramps over the other boat, and then that boat explodes. And then what happened to the dude who like fell to the waterboard guy? Like,
I mean, piranhas for sure.
I mean, he's probably got piranha'd. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I put in my notes like, because of movies, the boat then explodes for no reason. Dumb. Back to the jovial atmosphere of the beach area at the resort. Apparently, no one heard the boat explode nearby. We see possibly the most egregious scene of the entire movie. which is some girl reading Moby Dick on the beach.
Yeah.
0% chance. I'm sorry. Like, no one is reading Moby Dick on the beach. That is not beach reading. But we finally get the sound of Piranha approach. So some people on floaties are starting to get attacked, and people on inner tubes and stuff like that. And again, this is like one of those, like, it starts out a little too slow and it takes too long for the gore to ramp up. Like, they're just like screaming and like falling off of their thing. And I wish that they wouldn't start so slow. I wish they'd start with the blood, you know? Because when the gore effects ramp up, they're great. Right. But like now, like at these beginning parts, it's like, oh, another person fell out of an inner tube and is now splashing around. Like, great. But hey, at least we're getting some attacks. We'll take what we can get after all of that nonsense we just went through. So we get what was it? Buck is on the phone with like another of several newspapers he apparently called, because he says that he's already talked to all the other ones and this is the last one of a series of calls. That's when his assistant Whitney comes over and says something about the piranhas. He said, "Hey, what did I tell you? Like, not to even say anything about the piranhas." And then he's like, "Well, what about the goddamn piranhas?" And Whitney's like, "They're eating the guests, sir." It's like iconic moment in this movie. They're eating the guests, sir. And then now we finally start to
I'm going to have to call you back.
Yeah, excuse me. Don't believe anything anyone says, even me. But yeah, so like we finally get some interesting gore effects as people are getting devoured and eaten in real time. We get some blood, like bloody water, some like chunks taken out. There's people panicking, and some try to get on shore and get pulled up on shore and stuff like that. But some of them are going to like that tiki boat that Waxman and Mengers are on. And Waxman, being the absolute piece of garbage he is like yelling at people to get off and like pushing them back into the water if they get on the boat. He's like, "You're going to flip the boat." It's like, man, dude, like how trash can you be?
Yeah, like how many kids do you think he specifically killed by kicking them back into the water? At least 4.
Yes. Right? Yeah, definitely. Like he has like blood on his hands for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he already did, but now even more so. Yeah. And then, after some more scenes of gnarly carnage, and it's like kind of hard to describe because there's a lot of it. There's like people who are like some cool scenes of people actually like getting attacked by piranhas underwater. Because we don't get a lot of scenes where we actually see the piranhas nibbling on people, but we actually finally get some here. There's like one scene with like a corpse is floating. And it's like massive amounts of flesh are taken out of it and stuff. So now we get some really good scenes. Like this is pretty much the money shot of the movie. Like just all of these people just getting like devoured. The problem is that it's been done better in subsequent movies, including like Piranha 3D, just because of like technology being better. But it's still a fun scene, like where we finally get the thing we've been waiting for this whole time. But yeah, no, so Maggie and Paul arrive. I'm like, I don't know what they expect to do, but they're running with purpose. So they seem to know what they want to do. Back at the tiki boat, we get the moment we've all been waiting for, where Colonel Waxman falls into the water, and he instantly gets devoured. Like he gets blooded up real fast, and then we get like the final scene of his bloody hat sinking to the bottom.
Yeah,
like there you go, Waxman, you jag, you got what you deserved.
About time. Surprised the doctor didn't push him down with a stick or something.
Well, the doctor can't do too many things to make it seem like she's an okay person, because she's arguably even worse than him. But Paul and Maggie run to a speedboat and just take it and drive off. And as they're driving, Maggie's like, "So where are we going?" It's like, has Paul not shared his plan yet? But Paul explains that he wants to go to the smelting plant, which if you remember from earlier, the smelting plant was closed down because of the pollution. And he wants to like open up some like chambers that still have polluted material in it and like pollute the lake and just like wreck the piranhas that way.
Yeah.
So they get to the plant, but of course the control booth is flooded, which honestly, what did he expect? This area is a lake now. That's how water works. So yeah, Paul gets the tow line. He ties himself to it and he tells Maggie he's going to jump in. She's going to count slowly to 100. And then at 100, gun the throttle and pull him out. Whether he's done or not, that's the way the news goes. So he like starts the count with her and gets to like 5. before he jumps in. And then as he's swimming, we get some cross-cutting to the school of Piranha on their way to him. Like they sense that he went somewhere to try to stop them and they can't allow it. It's like, that's why I was kind of surprised, because like, man, they have so many people to still eat over at the resort. Like, why would they bother leaving that? That's a veritable cornucopia of food.
Well, I assumed by how much they were breeding that pool in the beginning was just like teeming with them. Like they were just everywhere.
So there's just so many of them that there's like contingents everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
That's fair enough. Yeah. He starts the count with Maggie, and then it's pretty uneventful at first as he swims down. He gets to the control booth. It's now flooded. And I was like, how long is this thing enclosed? Because the underwater vegetation is pretty lush for a relatively recent endeavor. But then he gets to like a window. He breaks the window and goes into this room. And it's really funny. So he's swimming into this room to like get to the control, like, or get to the valve that he wants to get to, which is in the next room over. But that first room he gets into, did you notice that there's like an open bottle of beer on the table, and he like lingers on it for a second?
No, I missed that.
There's like awesome. A bottle of beer, and it looks like he like stops and looks at it for a second. And like, no time for alcohol. You have to pollute this lake. Also, that beer is open and it's underwater
and full.
Yeah, so you don't. Yeah, it's full of water now. So yeah, he resists the pull of the empty beer bottle, and he gets to the release valve. It's a pretty cool moment because it's like clearly hard for him to move. He's like trying really hard to like twist this valve and get it open, but we get Piranha sound. They're here. And it's one of the few times we actually get to see the piranhas do their business. We've gotten a few more recently, like some of the ones at the resort. We saw the piranha, and this is pretty effective because they're like biting into, like chunking out his back and like biting his fingers while he's trying to like operate the valve. And it's like clearly he's just trying to grab this. It's like when you try to grab something like it's too hot off of your counter or something, like off of your stove. It's like, I could have just used an oven mitt, but if I do it really fast, it's like, it won't hurt. So yeah, that's what he's doing. It's like, the feeling when you're trying to do something with your fingers and it's getting hurt. I get it. Like, I can't be the only person with fingers around here. But yeah, so he's starting to get pretty damaged. But we start to see a cloudy substance coming from some like nearby pipes. So I guess that's the visual representation of the pollution. He's finally getting it out there. Maggie gets to 100 and guns the engine. Super curious about this because the tow line is just a rope that he tied around his like midriff.
Dude, he's for sure paralyzed.
Yeah, it's like it's gonna like break his back, like crack his ribs. Like, this dude is hurting.
Maybe that's why at the end he's just laying there.
Yeah, he's like, that's funny. So like basically it pulls him away from the piranha. He breaks through the rest of the glass at the front window. And then, he's messed up. But then once she's gotten far enough away, Maggie stops and tries to pull Paul in. But she gets the end of the rope. It's frayed. Is he dead?
Hand.
Is he dead? Oh yeah, he said a hand. Bloody hand. His bloody hand surfaces. He is alive, even if not completely intact. Back at Aquarina, there's a newspaper reporter talking about the tragedy of Lost River Lake. What is it? His tagline is terror, horror, death, film at 11. Like, okay, dude. We see the aftermath, tons of like they have like a area where they keep the dead bodies that are like covered in like sheets. It's like, oh man, there's so many dead bodies, dude. We see that, and that's the ones that weren't probably completely eaten by the piranhas. We see that Susie has arrived for some reason because it doesn't look like Laura's there. She's crying and wrapped in a towel and carrying her dad's alcohol flask. It's like she's got to get him his juice. And then meanwhile, walking through the devastation, we get Buck Gardner. Credit to Dick Miller for being a good actor, because he actually does seem like he's like going through it while he's walking through the devastation that he basically had a hand in causing. Although to continue the main characters of this movie, like lashing out against people who aren't to blame for the thing that they did, he like yells at a cameraman and tries to push him. Like, he's like, "What are you filming for?" It's like, "Cause it's news, dude." Like,
It's like, were you not here?
yeah, there's hordes of corpses, bro. Like, what do you think? It's like, you could have shut it down, Mayor from Jaws. This is kind of on you. So yeah, then Susie does locate Maggie and the injured Paul, who's now on a stretcher, and he's pretty messed up looking. He's got chunks missing, faux show. And then that's when Maggie's like, what is she's like, here, try to take some of this, and she like puts like some alcohol into her fingers to put it into his mouth.
So weird.
I know. You know, so I put my notes like, yes, the elixir of life that will save him, tequila.
Yeah, thin that blood out.
And the funniest part is, like, not to get ahead of myself, but we are almost at the end of the movie. That's the last shot we get of him, is his like basically catatonic self while she tries to scoop alcohol into his mouth.
Yeah.
So the hero's send off. But meanwhile, another news reporter is talking to Dr. Mengers, who somehow got away with everything. Literally no one knows that she's like as much to blame for all of this. And she's talking about how she's now going to head up an investigation to see who's responsible and how they can stop it from ever happening again. It's like, oh yes, let's put our trust in this lady. And then the reporter asks her if the piranha make it to the ocean. And she's like, that's not likely because the pollution would have killed them. Plus, they can't survive in salt water. Again, she has a PhD in being wrong all the time. So she's got to say that. And then her final line is she turning and looking in the camera and says, "There's nothing left to fear." Right. As the camera cuts to the ocean and we hear piranha sound, suggesting that there is more left to fear. And then, of course, there's a direct sequel to the movie. So clearly it's not over. And then
clearly there's still stuff to fear.
Yes, clearly stuff to fear. And then we get like a red tint on the ocean water once again as the word piranha shows up in blue letters. And we get our closing credit music, a mournful orchestral score over the blue lettered credits of a red tinted ocean. And that, my friend, is Piranha.
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 Man. What a fucking train wreck.
What a journey we went through for that.
I don't even know what to do for McMurder the movie because you don't really see like there's like all those kids. I don't know. Like, what do you? That's why I said Betsy to me was like the most effective one, but like,
I have one.
Like, how do you even?
Not
okay.
That.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Jeff.
Was it
or Jack rather?
Oh, the legs. Yeah, that. Or no, wait.
Yes. Yeah. So it's the part where like, because what I loved about
telling
that
the story
scene,
of the dog.
What I loved about that scene is he was an endearing character who was telling a story to his dog about his other dog who died, and then his dog wasn't paying attention because his dog was paying attention to the piranhas, and then he's like, it's like, hey, well, you're not paying attention to the story. You're missing the point of the story. And then he starts getting his legs eaten, and we get like a pretty gory scene of that, but we don't see the full thing. Then we get the raft show up. We see the upset dog. We see the bloody like Doc, and then we get to see him afterwards, which is him with like his feet that are still legs, but like down to the bone, basically.
Yeah.
Like I get Betsy for like the emotional heft of it because she was like one of their characters that like actually mattered, but I don't always go for the one that's like the most emotionally resonant. I go for the one that's like the craziest one, and I feel like that's the Jack one for me. But
yeah, I'll give it to you because honestly, that was the only other one that has of any note. Like, I guess you could do Dr. Hoke, but like the bro just like jumped in the water and then just didn't come back out of the water. It's like, okay.
Yeah, big problem with that is like, what was your plan, dude?
Yeah.
Like, say,
Well, his skull was fractured, so.
That's true. He had 2 concussions in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah, the real McMurder of the movie was what was it? That one cop that got like chunked in the head by like porcelain.
She might have killed him.
Behind. He might be dead because like that was I forgot to mention this in like the plot description, but like the section where so she's like took the pulse of Dr. Hoke. It's like he's still got a pulse or whatever. He's still breathing. But then she said the same thing. It's like he's alive. It's like, yeah, but that's like the bare minimum. Like, how is this higher function? Like, you just knocked that dude out.
He's also unconscious, face down in a pool of water. So
yeah, and without pants on now.
Yeah.
So even worse for him. That's the thing is like it's treated like it's a joke, but it's like, hey, head wounds are not a joke. Like this man is possibly dead. Definitely has a lot of recovery to go through.
Yeah.
But
okay, well, we did it.
So we're gonna go with Jack then.
I think that's fair.
The leg gnawing.
Yeah.
I thought you'd make more of a case for Betsy.
It's hard to. She didn't make it. She went in the water. The string fish got her, and that's about it.
That was the thing that I liked about hers is you actually saw the piranha attacking somebody for once, which was like really good. I think my problem was just like it was so obvious she was gonna die. Like it was just like, yeah. I mean, I guess it was obvious that that Jack was gonna die because he had his feet in the water. I don't know. Now I feel like I'm talking myself out of Jack and into Betsy, which is a weird way to phrase that, but I feel like that's what I'm doing.
Plan the whole time.
Yeah, but like
I don't know. You get to see the bone feet. I'm gonna go with Jack.
I do love them bone feet. That's kind of the problem with the Betsy one. Is like it was awesome to see her get grabbed and like
you don't see
dragged down. But yeah, that's my Quentin Tarantino moment. Gotta see them feet. But no, it's just one of those things like where, okay, I feel this moment. It's really like wild. This happened. It sucks. This is a character we came to enjoy, but I don't really get to like see.
Do we really come to enjoy that character?
I don't know. She had that scene with Susie where they were playing darts and she's trying to like help Susie come up with like a way to like cheat the system.
Your least favorite part of the movie?
The camp scenes?
Yeah.
The camp scenes that I hate the most are like those ones I like. Like I like the ones with Susie bonding with the counselors, with Laura and with Betsy. It's all the other ones that are just like random cutaways to like, hey, soon we're going to be doing our inner tube race. Get ready, everybody. And then it's like cut back. It's like, did we need that? Did we need this cut aside? Do you think that in those like extra 10 minutes that elapsed, we were going to forget that we had a secondary location? The only tension it was building was in my jaw because I was clenched with rage.
All right, I'm going Jack. What are you going with?
We'll jack it up.
All right.
Yeah, we'll keep it Jack. Mostly because like we got to see the true aftermath, which is poor Brandy.
Yeah.
Brandy didn't deserve this.
Not like this.
Yeah. I'm hoping that Paul
get one per episode.
Paul would get one quote from one of the obscure quotes from the Matrix for episode. I do hope that what is it? Paul ended up adopting Brandy after that. I'm
just gonna let you know, Paul's fucking paralyzed. I'm sorry. That boat was way too powerful. So Paul ain't gonna do much of anything for the rest of Paul's days.
That means he'll just have plenty of time to... What was he even doing before that? Like, what was his job? Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
drinking.
Susie will adopt the dog, and it'll become like Paul's support dog.
Yeah,
there you go. That's the ending. That's the ending we deserve.
We did it.
Yeah, we got it, guys. We found the happy ending that the movie never gave us.
Well, now that we have we figured out the McMurder of the movie, what's next?
What's next?
Cue
it up. It is time for the
Judgment Categories.
Different noises. Yeah, but as listeners know, the judgment categories are where we ascribe a letter grade to 5 different categories. Those categories are story, which includes writing, acting, effects, the music, and music can include like sound design and everything. And then finally, the cult factor. The cult factor being that little X factor that makes these movies so special. 1978 edition. So for the story, I mean, this is a hard one because it is starting out as a ripoff of a thing. Like,
Yeah.
we know what we're doing. We know the archetype we're working within here. I think there are elements that work really well, and I think there are elements that make me want to, stab my eyes out.
So what are you feeling?
Okay, so what works well. I liked Dr. Hoke for as long as he had him. I actually do find Paul and Maggie to be very endearing protagonists. I enjoy them, their arcs and their personalities and what they bring to the table is with their little squad. I think that as villains, Waxman and what's her name? Mengers, Dr. Mengers. So I think that those two are appropriately like despicable protagonists, and the things they do are the things that you do in this kind of movie to just make things escalate. But at the same time, when I say that, I'm like, this kind of movie, like we've seen it, we know what it is. But this is also only a couple years after that like template was forged. So it's hard to hold it against it for being, it's like if I were to watch like John Carter and then be mad at it for being the template that it created when Edgar Rice Burroughs first wrote A Princess of Mars, like it created the template. You can't be mad at it. It's like, it's new to the world. But then, you have all of these sequences at the camp. And I'm like, why are we here? Like, we don't need to be at this camp. Like too many scenes of screaming kids just like playing. And that's why I didn't like the scenes with the kids getting eaten, because they were already screaming before that, like when they were just in the water, because that's what kids do. So now I have to like know that these are screams of terror instead of screams of just being annoying.
Screams of joy.
So yeah, so I think I'm gonna have to go with C on this one.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna have to argue with you. I think C's pretty fair. Especially because they tease the stop motion like creature. So
Dude,
like for me,
yeah, that's lost opportunity number 1 right there.
Yeah, for sure. So just kind of like, I don't know. I was kind of mad that like they just could have done so much with this whole thing. And I guess I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but yeah, C's for sure where I think it should be, because there were some things that were great and some that just fell flat completely.
Yeah, and that's why I was trying to be like fair to like the idea that it seems like it's so fixated on the same formula that sort of like Jaws is done and stuff like that. But then I think about a movie like Slithis, which is like the same year as this and is wild to me, that is not as famous. Like this movie is very famous still comparatively. Yeah. And like Slithis is almost unknown. I'm like, Slithis' story was way more interesting than this one was.
For sure. I just think the names attached to this were, I mean, you know how that goes.
Yeah, and this launch of Joe Dante's career obviously huge because Gremlins.
Right.
But all right, well, story we're going to do C, coming
Okay.
out swinging. C for crap. It's a piranha. Next up is acting.
Oh man,
How are you
I
feeling
was
on this acting?
I was torn on this because I actually liked Paul. I did. I didn't have a problem with, like, I felt like the people were doing a great job. It was just the nonsense that they were given didn't really line up. There weren't any like duds for me, like that I was just the whole time like, please God, piranhas, kill this one next. Um I mean, I'd go B. No one really stood out, but no one really like sucked. So
That's
I don't know.
fair. I was actually leaning
Yeah.
more towards A because I really actually
Really?
liked Paul's character a lot. I thought that he gave a really good performance. And I remember when I first saw Maggie's character, I was like annoyed with her character.
Mhm.
But then she like grew on me, which is like an important part of the performance is like that this character that initially came out the gate, like she seemed kind of absent-minded and a little bit like haughty and like full of herself. But then like through like just being competent at like stuff she was doing, like the performance kind of won me over. And one thing that I think doesn't get enough credit for this era is child actors. And the actress who's playing Susie, like, really put in a performance that like seems more like a modern performance. Like we've talked before about how like kids in like these older movies usually seem terrible, and it's like mostly because we have like our modern stuff like Stranger Things, like these master classes in like child performances. But like the actress who played Susie really brought her game for that in a way that feels kind of out of place with a lot of like child performances from this era, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. I
And then
Okay.
you know what I love, Dick Miller, that is,
Yeah.
because he was
You better
out
hope
there.
You better hope I leave that in there.
Like Dick Miller's out there just killing the game, and you know, like I said, like you have the villains of the movie that I think were appropriately skeevy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll give you B. I'm leaning towards A, but I just wanted to make my case. So
Well, I'll give you A if you'll lean with me another way soon. Horse trade.
oh no, are we allowed to do that?
I don't know.
All right, I agree to do it. Oh, and
It's
Dr.
called-
Hoke, dude. Like the
Yeah.
what
He plays a great concussed guy. You're right. Damn.
that's not what I meant, but yeah, he does do a good job of it. And it's like those like moments on the boat where he's like basically, at least for me, he was like the audience's mouthpiece, where he's like, "What? You're not blaming me for this. You're the ones who messed
Right.
this
Yeah,
up."
that's true. That's good.
And like, and they're just like being dicks. And we're like, "Whoa, this isn't his fault, guys." So, all right, acting. We're gonna go A. We're doing the thing.
right.
We're gonna hit him.
Okay.
Then that means we're on to effects. I kind of go a couple ways on this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say B because I don't know. This one's hard because were the effects bad or were they just I don't know. They weren't bad when they were done. I hated the boat thing. I thought that was stupid.
Yeah, that
But is
boat
that-
one was bad. Yeah.
But was that so much of was the explosion bad or was just the fact that it did explode bad? So like I try to like it's not like they did a bad job at blowing that boat up. You know what I mean? The stop motion monster A instantly. But because it wasn't in the movie C, and then like the cool
stop motion
What's up?
monster A instantly.
Yeah. The cool like scenes where they show the piranhas in the water sometimes I thought was kind of cool. So I think that brings it up to a B for me. But like other than that, like there weren't a lot of kills. Like there were honestly this probably has one of the highest body counts in a movie, but the timing, like the time on screen for like cool things to happen is very minimal. So it's like,
they really saved, especially like the gore effects. Like I remember thinking like by the time we got to the start of the final massacre at the what was it, at the resort, it was like it was once again not super bloody, and it was kind of like boring, and I'm like, are we really going to come to this scene and not get like a smorgasbord of gore, a gorgasbord, if you will? And then instead it started happening, but they waited on it. Like they like waited till halfway through that scene before you started seeing a lot of really messed up people, like with chunks taken out of them and like legs gone. And so like they started actually doing it. It's like, oh, that's why they had to save their money. So they waited till now to give it to us. So like when they do it, it's incredible. And like the scenes where you actually get to see the piranhas, like, yeah, most of the time they kind of look like puppets on sticks, because guess what? They're puppets on sticks.
right.
But, you know, and then you get, yeah, like you said, and then we get moments like, you know, why do we even have this claymation dude out here to tease us for a better movie? But yeah, no, so what, are we going to go with B for effects then?
Yeah, I think it's fair because I don't. So it's like I don't even know why. It's hard to hold it against them that there weren't as many, but like I don't know. I feel like they could have done more with some things. I'm mad that they didn't show like almost any deaths. Like, I mean, even the kids in the water, like you see the chunks missing, but it was like, okay, it just looks like people, okay, frantically splash around really hard and we're going to throw a red dye in the water. So it was kind of, then the Betsy kill was cool. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. B. I think it's hard to.
I really think that that's part of the budget, is like they needed to make some choices. And I guess the fact that when they did go for it, it was as effective as it was is good. But you do wish for more. And that's why like the scene with all the kids getting killed, like, hey, I'm not a psycho. I usually don't like watching kids get killed. But instead, like during that scene when they're just like splashing around stationarily in the water, knowing there's things in there killing them, it's like, all right, good.
Yeah.
Get them out of here. Like,
yeah.
I don't
so
want
we're settling on B.
Yeah, we're going to settle on B for be careful.
Get these kids out of here.
There's piranhas in these waters.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Back to you being enjoying watching these kids get eaten.
You know how I feel about it. Well, that's the thing, is like there's some scenes where a kid gets eaten where it's like the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like if we ever cover Alligator, there's a scene where a kid gets killed in that, which is the worst scene on earth. Like it like haunted me for years. Yeah. Like still to this day. And I remember I watched like, I think Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs covered it. He's like, where did that come from? He's just like, that was so tonally inconsistent with the rest of this movie. I'm like, yeah, that's correct. But with this movie, it's like these kids, like, man, just get out of the water. Like, get out of there.
Does it beat the kid getting pancaked by a steamroller?
Oh, I mean, that's you can't beat that.
Yeah.
Maximum overdrive pull.
Yeah.
All right, where were we? We're down. Oh, we're to the music and also sound.
Okay. Sound, cool. They did some cool things. The drill in the water kind of sounded weird, but it's cool. It's its own thing. Wasn't a fan of the orca sounds underwater. When they were like underwater at any point in time, they would just put like whale sounds in the background, which fucking, inexplicable. But music, unremarkable. I struggle to find any comments about it. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. Again,
it's mostly the opening and closing.
Which were good.
Yeah. And I hate to compare this too much to Slithis, because it seems like at this point that's an unfair comparison for us, because Slithis is so much better in my opinion. But like, I think about like how the music in Slithis like played a part in what we're hearing, like what we're experiencing. Like there were stings. The music was pulling its weight. Here it wasn't doing anything really.
You know what would have helped this movie, I think? If we would have had some soft clarinets over that scene where all those kids were dying in the water. I think that would have really tied this up with a nice bow.
Oh yeah, I would have really liked a jazz clarinet.
Just a jazz quartet. Just like a clarinet, a trombone, maybe an upright bass, and then, I don't know, maybe someone doing those like percussion things where you just shake at the shaker thing.
Like a maraca?
Nah, they have the little egg. It's like a little egg.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, an egg.
Yeah. So, I don't know, man. It's pretty mid to me. I'd say C. I think they did some cool tricks that were fun. They did some other really questionable things, which I don't understand. The intro was good. The outro was good. And then everything else was kind of there.
Yeah. And I
feel like we're going to catch a lot of flack from the community. But like, when you talk about like horror movies, like, I don't know how this is like, again, we're coming hot off of Slithis. I guess maybe that's probably what it is for me. And I didn't even like the music in that.
Sorry, I just like the idea. It's like coming hot off of Slithis.
Yeah,
like,
man. I saw Slithis and I saw Godzilla, which was probably one of the best movies of all time.
Yeah, and then we're over here with like a competent but unremarkable movie, which is wild that this has like such a reputation. But okay,
yeah, yes. I don't get it.
I have to agree with you. I think that the opening suite is solid. I think the ending, the outro is really solid. I think that it is giving off the message they want to give. But throughout, like, it really didn't feel like the music was that remarkable. And honestly, like, I'm glad they had a sound to signal when Piranha were nearby, but it didn't really even feel that good to me. Like, it was better than like Roach Approach from The Nest, but that's not a hard bar to like clear. Like, that wasn't. Yeah. So like, yeah, it's better than that, but it's still not great. It really could have used like I don't know, like some kind of thematic score, like some kind of
like Jaws.
Yeah, like an establishing motif of some kind. Like,
I swear, I bet they're like, we can't fucking do it. We can't make a song.
We can't have also like a theme song.
Like, no, like with Jaws, like we copy the premise. We can't have a on cue like music like thing that signifies that the piranha are coming.
But here's the thing. The song in Jaws is very much like about like that creature, like the
yeah.
But like that's not how the piranha would sound. That should be more like a lot stringy, like a lot like more like high pitched strings. No, like something like more high pitched, like a series of
Josh is da da.
Yeah, like something more high pitched and more frantic.
And the piranha would be da da. Just do it backwards.
No, what are you talking about? You know music better than I do. I shouldn't be the one explaining this. Like, so basically a series of short, shrill, high-pitched string sounds.
Like Psycho?
Shorter than that. Like faster than that.
Okay. Like Flight of the Bumblebee?
I don't know Flight of the Bumblebee. How's that go?
Oh, never mind. Let's move on.
What is it? How does it go?
I'm not. Or like, I don't know. Or Ride of the Valkyries would have been a good one.
No, I disagree. I feel like you're not getting what I'm trying to tell you. Why would it be Ride of the Valkyries? That's still like, first of all, that's still pretty deep intonation, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm kidding. I get it. I get what you're saying.
Oh. Well, how am I supposed to? I don't know the words. You're the one who's the trained musician. I don't know the words. I just try to come up with the idea.
I don't know these words.
What's the deal with airline food? Anyways, so we're going to go with C for that because they just didn't quite hit it the way they should.
C for airline food. This was an airline food version of music. Let's say that. That's good. That's a good analogy.
C for
like airline food.
C for Carcharodon carcharius, the scientific name of the great white shark, which is Jaws, which is what this movie ripped off. Now we have the hat, or not the hat on the hat, but the final of our judgment categories. The cult factor, that little X factor that makes movies so special.
This is tough because I feel like it's hard not to go A, especially in hindsight. So like we know now this has spawned all kinds of stuff, so it's hard to not think about this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, sorry, but the second one is Piranha 2, The Spawning.
Ah, Jesus
So when you
Christ.
said spawn, I was like,
Yeah.
it's a pun.
You know what else spawns?
Slithus.
Slithus.
You have to get up pretty early in the morning to trick me away from my slithy. Yeah. No, yeah.
I mean, this is usually our nice one, right? So like,
well, here's the thing. I was actually way harsher on this movie the first time I watched it, and I was like, I don't think I like this. Which was a weird, or not the first time I watched it. The first time I watched it for this.
yeah.
And then, coming back to it the next couple times, I was like, okay, wait, no, I was holding it to too high of a standard. Not everything can be a Slithus. There's a lot of competency in the direction. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. There are some fun gore scenes. It takes a little while to get there, but some of the adventures to get there is also kind of fun. Like you get, like, in what movie can we have a series of heroes that are like Jeep, Raft, what is it? Stolen army Jeep, stolen state trooper car, motorboat. Like, yeah, it's just like a series of like random misadventures. And I feel like in a creature feature, I want to do creature more, but I need to understand that that's like not always the project, and it can be about what the people are up to. And so, yeah, I think I have to give it an A. Like, at the end of the day, there's never a bit where I was just like totally checked out, except anytime I went to the camp. And that was only like probably
10 minutes.
Yeah, like a total amount of time, like not a lot of it.
So, wait a minute. Why didn't they take the canoe off that kid and his dead dad?
Well, what do you mean?
Like, why wouldn't they switched boats?
Well, it wasn't until after that they started getting gnawed upon. And it was capsized. And it's really hard to overturn a capsized boat from,
I guess,
on top of the water. Because of like and it was sinking too. So they'd have to pull it up and uncapsize it. And probably have to drain it. So they probably needed to bring it to the shore.
You're right. All right, I'll go A.
Wait,
that was my hang up.
That was the that was the thing. That was the one thing holding you back.
Yeah, that was it. That was the one thing.
All right. Well, then, yeah, there you go. Cult factor A. It is our nice category, and it honestly, it is partially probably because of the legacy of the people involved in this more than anything. Because I know what they were going to become. And that was what leads me to believe that they must have been like working with like nothing to create this. So every once in a while you gotta hand a bone to like really famous people who are now like multi-billionaires at this point, probably, or multi-millionaires, I guess. Let's be fair.
Yeah.
Well, you know what that means.
What does that mean?
Shane, wait, did you say?
What?
Nothing. Do you know what it means?
What does it mean? What does it mean?
What does it mean?
What does any of this mean?
It is time for our final hat on a hat category, the one we don't need, but we do it anyway because it's our podcast. And if you don't like it, start your own podcast and don't do it. It's the D-roll. Do, 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 do.
That was good. It was a solid transition.
Thank you. Yeah, so as the initiated know, the D roll is our final category where we slot this bad boy into one of our 4 potential categories. It is cult classic, B movie, grindhouse, or trash. And hopefully it'll never be trash, but I think it might one day be. There's only so many movies in the world.
So you should go first. Because I have thoughts. Well,
what makes you think I have thoughts?
You always have thoughts.
This is a hard one. The performances, like I said, they grew on me. I really got to understand them. The pedigree here is important. I didn't have as much fun with it as I wanted to have. And that might not be the movie's fault. That might be my own fault. But it is competently done. It is important for film history. I don't know. It really makes me like, whenever, like, out of all of the Jaws.
I'll say it if you want.
Are we doing B movie?
Dude, I'm Jerry Seinfeld on this one, man. I don't know why. I just like, I don't know. But if you go cult classic, I get it. But I know you wanted to say the B word.
I did want to say the B word.
Yeah, trust your gut. Because I mean, like, look, just because it's a B movie doesn't mean it can't be popular. I just feel like on the scale, on the whole, I just feel like it just wasn't. I don't know. It just didn't do it.
It didn't hit. Yeah, it didn't hit the way I wanted it to.
Yeah, midfield.
Okay. All right. I don't use the term mid because it's still a good movie. It's just well, it's hip to be square.
Oh shit. Fucking Huey.
Yeah, Huey Lewis in the News up in here. But no, yeah, so like that's the thing about this movie is like I don't want to be a podcast where we talk about things and be like, this is the popular consensus, but here's what we think. But like the idea that an absolute like banger like Slithis can happen and the world just doesn't see it. And then we're over here watching this guy that has like a, 80% on Rotten Tomatoes or something. And it's like, all right, can we get away from this like summer camp thing and back to my drunk random dude getting arrested by cops and thrown into jail without any rights? Like, it's such a weird movie in that way. Like, it's not like it isn't worth your time, but it definitely isn't as good of a use of your time as something like Slith is. So, B movie it is.
B movie. I'm shocked. I thought this was gonna be a cult classic for us.
Hey, man, no one's more surprised than I am.
Yeah. No one's more surprised than that dog. So.
What are you talking about, Brandy?
Yeah. She's a fine girl.
Or he, since the guy kept calling it he and boy.
Yeah, but he was drunk and his last dog could have been a boy dog, so we don't know.
That's true. We don't know. There's only known knowns and known unknowns. But what about the unknown unknowns?
Oh, shit. Well, so some quick housekeeping before we get into what we're doing next. We don't have much going on. Just this. Share it with your friends. All the support's greatly appreciated. Thank you. I'm trying to think that. I think that's all I had. I just, thank you, everyone. Honestly, it means a lot. So I don't know if you have anything housekeeping you wanted to bring up. Oh, Stefan did send me another review that I have to put up, and it will be up soon. I promise. And I'll post it.
I wasn't going to say anything.
I had it written
That was a while ago. But yeah,
like a week.
Yeah. I mean,
I've been
I
traveling.
guess it's
I'm
not
sorry.
like we're not going to like press with this, but Yeah, and then I actually started my next one, so
Oh shit!
I'll have it to you before the end of the week.
Is it Godzilla minus minus?
No, it's. Do you want?
I thought about doing a joke review of my take on Godzilla minus one minus color, and then just making the text white and just copying yours over.
That would be pretty funny, though.
But
also, you're the one who designs that. It's like so. It's not like,
yeah,
it's not like I
for
made
sure.
that choice.
Right. Yeah. Anyways.
But no, I'm actually writing a review about I talked about it before, the Shudder horror movie, the Christmas themed one. It's a Wonderful Knife. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to finish up the review on that. It's a very complicated story. So, and you know how I am about trying to like write a plot synopsis. I'm like, ooh, I got to make sure that I get the details. And it's like, well, with this movie, I don't think I can. It's too much. Like that's one of the negatives of it. It's very rich with incident. It's kind of hard to keep track of what is happening, but it's also super fun. So yeah, I'll have that to you by the end of the week. So that's your timeline to get my last one posted, so that you can then also do this one.
Hell yeah. Cool. So what do we have next? What's up next at the Dark Side Drive-In?
Well, after this movie, I was like, maybe we should leave the 70s. Like we did 2 70s movies. Like maybe we've run through the 70s, but I decided we'll just take one more step closer to the 80s, to the year 1979. And we will go to, what is it? Don Coscarelli. Is that the name of the director of it? Don Coscarelli's classic film, Phantasm.
Oh shit. I can't wait for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Don Coscarelli himself. And of course, the one and only Angus Scrimm.
It's going to be good.
As the tall man.
Oh,
have you seen this?
A long time ago.
This is one of those movies that the first time I actually saw it is whenever I went to our local, like one of the movie rental stores. I don't know if they're going out of business or they're just doing like one of their summer sales where they just offload a bunch of their like used DVDs. Mm-hmm. I bought a bunch of them, and one of them was the first Phantasm, and I was just like, I've never seen this. Let's see how this is. And the first time I watched it, I was like, this is too weird for me. Second time I watched it, it was like, yeah, I get it.
It's just weird enough.
Yeah. It's like, it is very like, it's going to be fun to talk about, like in terms, especially since I tried to like go into probably too much detail about our plot descriptions in order to like keep a narrative through way, like, so you understand the events that like might help you make sense of a plot. But with Phantasm, there's no way. There's just no way to make that thing make enough sense. So it should be good.
I can't wait.
Yeah, and it's on. Oh yeah, I didn't say where it is. It's definitely on Tubi. So first and foremost, Tubi all day. I think it's on Pluto TV. Let me see. It says Amazon Prime, but you know how that is. If you can trust if that's actually real.
Yeah.
Hoopla, Canopy, Peacock, Plex, Roku channel. Yeah, and then also, yeah, like I said, it is on Pluto TV and Tubi. So plenty of places to see it. It's a tight 89 minutes. So if you only have 90 minutes to watch a movie, you have an extra 60 seconds to figure out the rest of your life. So there you go.
Cool. Well, I think that about does it for me today. We covered a lot. I think I had higher hopes for this, but you know, shit happens. So I don't know. Do you have any closing thoughts, any closing remarks?
No. I mean, I think I would say that, sorry. I gave it a good pause. No, I do think part of the problem of this movie is that I do think that, 3D, Piranha 3D, the 2010, the remake. That one captures so much of what makes a silly, fun movie so good that the fact that this one plays it so straight is it's actually weird to think of them as being part of the same lineage, which I think factors into why like we think of it as not being as good, because it's like, well, this movie like really understood like, and that's not fair. That's like a tongue-in-cheek response to like that movie, and then also legions of movies that have come since and like things that have happened to the genre since. So I don't know. I feel like maybe I'll come back to this movie in a few years and see if this is just the way I think now, if I was unfair to it. But just right now, yeah, it's just a bummer to see it. It was so lackluster considering the reputation that it has and the careers that it launched. So it's hard to see.
Yeah. Well, that's very well put. And I think that about does it for us. So I've been Shane.
I've been a piranha. Oh, wait, no, I'm Stefan.
Project Razor Tooth.
Project Razor Tooth.
And this has been the Dark Side Drive-In. And keep it spooky.
Keep it spooky. If we were named by the people who name operations like Razor Teeth, be Operation Spooky Internet Thing. Oh, I guess not spooky internet thing. Internet thing about spooky things. That's what I mean. It's so on the nose. Like, oh, Operation Murder Gun. It's like, what's that about? It's like, oh, we just make guns. Sick.
Operation Spooky Listen Party.
All right. Yeah, but let's...